Good evening. Thanks for joining us and welcome to Vote 2016.
For the next 3 hours, we will bring you coverage of this year's national and local election results, from the candidates to the issues decided by Nebraskans.
We'll also have reporters standing by at both Brad Ashford and Don Bacon's election night headquarters. We'll be joining them in just a few moments.
Tonight, America decides. Will it be the first woman elected to the Oval Office, or will it be the outsider?
We will keep you updated live as it happens. Up next on the Omaha News, Vote 2016.
From the studios of UNO Television, this is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election, presented by the University of Nebraska at Omaha School of Communication.
Thanks for joining us. Nebraska polls opened at 8 this morning and are scheduled to close in just under 1 hour.
Omaha News reporter Chris Little spent the day at several voting precincts, and he's live in our newsroom to take a look at how today's voting has gone so far.
The most talkative voters were in Harvey Oaks. The voters explained that most of their concern is either fixing the current system or voting, as they put it, for the lesser of two evils.
I voted for Donald Trump.
Voting for Hillary Clinton.
I'll be voting for Donald Trump.
I voted for Donald Trump.
I'm supporting Don Bacon for Congress.
Because I believe that we should give the power back to the states versus giving all the power to the government.
The lesser of two evils.
It's not that Donald doesn't have some bad points, but I think with his business background and not being in politics all his life, that he can just handle situations better and just make the economy grow back.
I believe national security for the nation is the highest priority issue right now, and Hillary Clinton as president would not be respected by the Middle East, nor would she be respected by any other enemy that we have, and I believe Donald Trump will be. He's going to restore the strength of the nation, and that's the number one reason why I voted for him.
So, as you can see, the voters that I talked with had a lot of different concerns. Some were focused on the economy, others were worried about foreign policy, and in some cases, there are distrust issues with the other candidate. The polling stations will be closing at 8 tonight. Back to you in the studio.
The battle for Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District has been extremely competitive throughout this entire campaign. Joining us from Don Bacon's Election Watch event is Omaha News reporter Justin Eidelman. Justin.
Raised on a farm in the Midwest, Don Bacon learned the value of hard work and the importance of responsibility. Bacon graduated from Northern Illinois University with a political science degree in 1984, then joined the Air Force in 1985 and served 29 and a half years, retiring as a brigadier general. Bacon is now a candidate for Congress in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District and hopes to bring important military leadership to Congress to make this state and country safer. Obamacare is a huge issue this election year, and according to General Bacon, the one-size-fits-all approach with Obamacare just isn't working and wants to repeal it.
Obamacare is not an all-or-nothing thing. We can repeal it and replace it and put many of the provisions in place, such as protecting the donut hole for prescription drugs, such as protecting mental health coverage, pre-existing coverage.
The U.S. military's biggest threat is ISIS. General Bacon says that we need more money into military training to be prepared in order to destroy ISIS.
So I want to put emphasis on training. We got to get our training up and our readiness level so our folks who are at home station can deploy and do their job. Right now, folks back in their home units are not ready to deploy. That is dangerous.
With deadly confrontations between police and African American males in the U.S., Don Bacon believes there should be punishment when it's due, but also full-on investigations.
We have to look at each incident that has occurred individually in my mind. Some of them were egregious, and we have to hold law enforcement accountable. But others, we got to let the investigations go, and the law enforcement was found right.
Bacon will be representing the Republican Party and hopes to beat out Democratic candidate Brad Ashford.
And joining us now from Representative Brad Ashford's Election Watch event is Omaha News reporter Sierra Watson. Sierra, are you with us?
This is an awesome crowd here at the Ramada Inn on 72nd and Grover. We just found out that Clinton has won a couple of battleground states, and we're looking forward to Brad Ashford giving his congratulations speech later on tonight. Hope to see you soon. Back to you, Avery.
Nebraska, along with Maine, are the two states that split their electoral votes. In 2008, one of Nebraska's 5 electoral votes went to President Obama, creating a small blue dot in the southeast corner of Nebraska's electoral map. In 1992, Nebraska implemented a law that would split their electoral college votes. The 2nd Congressional District, whose electoral vote went to Obama in 2008, gained the nickname Blue Dot due to its location in a predominantly Republican state. Douglas County Democratic Party Chair Crystal Rhodes believes that young voters connected with Obama more than in years past.
A lot of young voters, a lot of people who had not previously felt very connected to the party were coming in and were caucusing, and were very, very excited about what was happening here.
In the following years, however, something changed that would make it more difficult to gain the blue dot in the future.
Between 2008 and the 2012 elections, a census occurred, and the legislature redistricted CD2.
While the state voted Republican on a national scale, the district did still see something that hadn't happened for a long time.
We did see a little bit of an anomaly in that the congressman that was elected was, for the first time in a very long time, a Democrat.
November 8th will be the big reveal to see if the blue dot returns for a second time. And as I had mentioned in that package, the redistricting there sort of made it difficult in 2012 to have that blue dot come back. So pretty interesting to see. How do you see it shaping up so far?
You know, it might definitely lean a little Republican this year. That's what we're kind of anticipating here. And to talk about that is actually Mr. Landau.
Yes, we have Dr. Paul Landau from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Dr. Landau, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
No problem. Sort of set the scene for tonight. How you see this election going between these two candidates locally.
Well, it's going to be a close election. I don't think there's much question about that. And it's been a pretty rough ride for both of them. In the last few weeks, there's been a lot of negative ads dropped from outside groups, and a lot of money's been spent on them. So I think that's had some impact. By most accounts, it seems to be a 2 to 3 point race one way or the other.
And talking about those ads and some endorsements, actually Bacon, getting endorsed by Paul Ryan, having a lot of money pumped in there. What did you make of the ads and the debates between these two candidates?
Well, I thought the debates were good, and I thought they're both excellent candidates. In fact, I would say both were terrific candidates. You really can't beat the resume of Don Bacon, and Brad Ashford's a longtime public servant as well. They're both top-notch, and we were lucky we had that caliber of candidate. I think the debate was on a high level, and I think they both did really well. It's unfortunate that in the end there was so much negativity, but frankly that's just the way it goes in American politics today.
Would you agree with the sentiment maybe that Don Bacon focuses a little too much on ISIS and obviously he has a military background, but maybe he needs to expand on his policy a little more than he has so far?
Well, I thought he was pretty broad-based, and I think that you go to your strength. He's clearly a a military leader, a general, and with distinction in his service.
Absolutely.
And I think he was going to his strength.
About the past 24 hours, what do you think these two candidates did with the last 24 hours, just getting that last little bit of campaigning in before Election Day?
Worked like crazy. They were campaigning 24 hours a day the last few days, and that's what always happens in a campaign.
Where do you think each one of them stands right now?
Again, it's hard to tell. I think it's a very close race, and we got to count the votes.
Moving a little more broad to the national scale, how have you felt about this national election? It's been completely different than anything we've seen, at least in recent history. What have you made about it so far? There's been a lot of talk about each candidate, about the election as a whole from all Americans. What have you thought about it?
It's been pretty tough, and I think most Americans are frankly sick and tired of it, want it over with, and are happy that today is it. The question is what happens tomorrow, and I think that we're going to have to try to heal this thing up as best we can and move forward. There's a lot of raw wounds, and it's going to take both candidates and the political parties and the candidates' supporters to say now we got to get together and move forward.
What do you think this election has done to the Republican Party?
Well, that's hard to tell you. It's really hard to say. I mean, obviously Donald Trump wasn't what they referred to as a movement conservative, and so therefore a lot of Republicans had a problem with him, and even to this day there's a lot of Republicans that aren't voting for him. Senator Sass in Nebraska, just as an example. So the party needs to figure out what Donald Trump did to them and figure out where they want to go from here. I think it's unlikely it will be with Trump, but on the other hand, he's got a huge following, and we'll have to see.
Do you think this election's been a little bit more of personality politics than we've seen in the past?
A lot of personality involved, but a lot of traditional politics too. You stand up there and slug away, and the best person wins. That's the way it goes, and a lot of people don't like it too much, think it's too negative, but for my thinking, I think that this is American democracy at its very best.
And when you look at the two candidates, everything that's gone on between the two of them, there's not been a lot of talk about the issues that both candidates have, because ultimately at the end of the day it's about the issues and where you stand. There's been a lot of talk about how each one of them flip-flops, and how they felt 10 years ago is different than they felt today. Do you think that's where politics is sort of heading, though?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, a lot of people say they want more detail on policy, but do they really? It's boring, it's difficult, it's hard to understand, and people respond more to personality, to the type of person they think is running, and I think that's generally the way Americans do things. I do think that what I find so interesting about these races is that in the end, you wind up sort of bonding, both sides kind of bond, because anybody that's ever been in politics knows it's very difficult and can be very disappointing. It can also be uplifting. But the thing is that everybody's in the same boat. Everybody that's ever been in politics has won some and lost some. And there's a deep respect on both sides for each other.
Well, Dr. Paul Landau, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate having you. And we are also going to be going back to the Don Bacon party tonight, where our reporter Justin Eidelman is. Justin?
Thanks, guys. The atmosphere has definitely picked up here a little bit. A lot of Don Bacon supporters have made their way in to the Regency Marriott. Don Bacon is not here yet. He is waiting for the results with his family, so you could probably expect him here around 8 o'clock or so. But a lot of people coming in, music playing. It's a great environment, people having fun, and just chit-chatting a little bit, and to keep the 2-point lead that they do have from the polls that came out a little bit ago, as we heard. And so we'll keep you guys updated here at Regency Marriott, reporting live for the Omaha News. I'm Justin Eidelman.
After the break, we will take a look at the first wave of results coming in from around the nation.
Don't go anywhere as Vote 2016 continues right here on the Knowledge Network.
Just recently, MAV Radio has won several awards, both from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association as well as the Broadcast Education Association. And I think it just is proof that our students are doing work that is equivalent, if not surpassing, other students around the nation. So I'm really proud of where we've come, and I can't wait to see where we're going.
The UNO TV team teaches students the skills they need to take professional jobs in the Omaha community. Through paid positions, students build their skills in lighting, audio, camera work, and other essential control room operations. Programs air locally on TKN and statewide on NHE World. UNO Television, student crew, professional staff, award-winning results.
The Library Cafe at UNO's Chris Library is the ideal spot to stop in and grab a bite to eat. Order a hot cup of coffee or other drinks. Chat with friends or study.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Some polling locations have been closed for over an hour now. So to get the latest on those results, let's go to Omaha News reporter Tiara Sheree, who is standing by live in our newsroom. Tiara.
Thank you. So the polls have closed in several states, including Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Vermont, and Virginia. So starting with Florida, Trump is currently leading here by about 2.5 percentage points. A victory here is huge for him, and many feel it's actually impossible for him to win the race without it. The race is expected to be extremely close here in the Sunshine State and was very close in 2012 as well. In that race, Florida was the only state decided by less than 1%, with Barack Obama narrowly beating Mitt Romney. Now moving on to Georgia. Trump is winning here by almost 44%, and this isn't too surprising as the state has leaned Republican throughout the bulk of the cycle. The last time Georgia voted Democrat was in 1992 for Bill Clinton, but as of now, it doesn't look like they're going to be going for another Clinton. In South Carolina, Trump is currently up by less than 1%. And now the polls are closed here, but we're expecting Trump's lead to increase because South Carolina has voted Republican in every election since 1980. In Vermont, Clinton has been declared the projected winner and is leading here. In the last election, Obama beat Romney by the largest margin aside from DC and his native Hawaii, so Clinton's win here was expected. And finally, in Virginia, Clinton is currently winning by almost 12%. Virginia is considered to be one of the key toss-up states for this election, but Clinton has been winning throughout most of the cycle. We will have more numbers for you as they come in. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Tiara. Joining us now live in the studio is former Nebraska representative and Omaha Mayor Hal Daub. Mr. Daub, how are you tonight?
Great tonight. How are you?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Yeah, you got a lot of work to do here yet tonight.
Absolutely. We're just getting started here in the studio.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you and your viewers and to be on the University of Nebraska at Omaha's premier television network.
Thank you, and we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on tonight. It's great. So, Mr. Daub, I'm just gonna jump right into it. Are you expecting a Donald Trump win tonight?
Yes.
What makes you lean that way? I mean, currently right now, Hillary is in the lead, but I mean, what makes you lean that way?
If you take out New York and California's large populations, all of the real clear politics trending assessments and polling would show Trump winning. You leave those two states in and their polling numbers, because they're such big states, and it tips it slightly to her by 2 or 3 points in that average. But those don't count. It's the state-by-state results, and that polling is where we should be focusing more. And as you've seen from your own broadcast reporting, it's like just about 50-50. I'm surprised at this election being between these two candidates. 2 years ago, I would have never thought it, and I think that would be true of most Americans. They have very polarizing personalities. They have very different records. One is a record that was in sort of broad daylight in public life for 30 or 40 years, and the other was in private life. To contrast them is perhaps somewhat unfair, given the fact that their playing fields aren't very similar. So they're very different and arguably flawed in many ways, given most Americans' expectations. So I don't know what will happen tonight. I think it's going to be very close. I think likewise the Senate's going to be very close, 50-51. I think the Republicans will hold on to the Senate. My concern is a bigger one. My concern goes to tomorrow, as some of your commentators have said. This kind of a process doesn't take place anywhere else in the world. So it's just not Omaha or Nebraska or the United States, but globally the world is watching how we change the authoritarian leader of our democracy. We are a republic. We want to keep it. So I think things will be pretty civil tomorrow. But I think politically, in terms of foreign policy on military preparedness, foreign relations, immigration, infrastructure, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, ag policy, the next president, whichever one of them it is tomorrow morning, is going to have a very contentious, difficult time, and their first 100 days are not going to be paved with a lot of unity, as some might wish.
Absolutely. And to your point of this going on all night long, and hopefully we'll get it tonight, but we'll just have to see. Depending on who wins, what do you think the mood is going to be on the RNC tomorrow morning when they all wake up, or tonight at midnight or 2 in the morning, whenever it's all said and done?
Whichever way it goes. I mean, I think what's overlooked by the media and by people in the press is that why aren't we talking about Bernie Sanders and what he's done to the Democratic Party on the left? Why is it always just Donald Trump and the Republican Party on the right? Donald Trump ran against both parties. Mrs. Clinton ran as an institutional insider, locked inside the system. And yet there's no conversation about how far to the left Bernie Sanders has divided and moved the Democratic Party. So I think both parties will have very interesting, perhaps cathartic experiences in the next couple of months. And I think that it's not just exclusively to the Trump/Republican Party, but it should be to the Clinton-Sanders fracture that's occurred there as well, moving so much more extremely to the left. And I think that that's why I've said I'm concerned about tomorrow and how effective whoever wins can be, because of the extremes. And I want to make the point that it's because of, in my view, social media and the way in which we all now get our information. It's so instant. I mean, it comes to us on this machine,
Yes,
and it's posted, and it's never erased, but we never get to go back and revisit it to think about whether we agree or not, or whether we can get some more facts before we make up our minds. So I think there is a polarization that I don't blame on either party or either candidate. It's with respect to how we are being engaged by the systems that feed us with our information about American politics. I'm worried about that, and I think that the media needs to take a real healthy look at themselves in terms of how objective they are about the reporting that's occurred in the last year and a half.
Mr. Dobb, I think you alluded to it when you started talking about social media and the hurdles Mr. Trump had to jump over Sanders and Clinton. But if Trump gets this presidency, what do you think it's going to look like after him jumping all those?
I think everybody probably thinks it's going to be a miracle and or an upset or an unexpected circumstance tonight, but I don't think it's out of the question given the function of Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, and Florida. And if those all split, then you've got a race that's wide open as you move into the Midwest and to the West, and you'll look at Arizona, Nevada, Colorado. Be interesting to see what happens. In any event, the electoral vote may be so closely divided, again, as an indication of how closely divided the American voters have been, that you have this very difficult first 100 days, as I call it. How does this next president bring the idea of unity into enough of a focus that we can get some things done on those issues I mentioned, which are really the important things that I think all Americans want to see resolved.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dobb. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming in, and I think we all do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
For another look at what is shaping up around the country, let's go back to our newsroom for an update on state polling results with Omaha News reporters Jose Rodriguez and Alejandra Cortez.
Thank you, Avery. Currently, we have two states, Indiana and Kentucky. Indiana has 60.3% for Donald Trump, while Hillary has 35%. Also, we have Kentucky, who has 60.5% for Trump and 34% for Clinton. Alejandra?
Okay, and we also have currently North Carolina. This state was one of the key states that the candidates were in debate over. Currently, we have Donald Trump taking it with 56% and Hillary Clinton taking it with taking 41%. In 2012, North Carolina was the second closest race after Mitt Romney beat Obama by only 2%. We also have results for Ohio. This was another key state for the candidates. Donald Trump takes 50% while Hillary Clinton takes 46%. In the past, Ohio has been a good predictor for who the winner will be. Since 1944, Ohio voters had sided with the winner every election except in the 1960s when they voted for Nixon over Kennedy. We also have West Virginia, where Trump takes it with 51% and Clinton has currently 42%. The last time the West Virginia voted for a Democrat was in 1996, so this win for Trump was expected. And that's all we have for now. Back to you in the studio.
Well, thank you so much, Alejandra and Jose, for keeping us up to date on everything upstairs. Now, we do have our map here on the screen, and right now it's very close. Clinton leading by 20 points right now, and we're expected to see that most of the night. We're expecting a really close race, as Mr. Dobb said himself, Avery. It's just going to be a grinder tonight.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you're looking at this map, if you look down at Florida as well, that is extremely close. Last I checked, they were about 1,000 votes apart, both sitting at about 48.5%. So that's really, really key. Whoever can bring in Florida is going to be sitting in a good position. But as you look at this, you see Trump doing well in most states, but needing Florida, and it looks like he could possibly just nick it.
Absolutely, and thank you again for keeping us updated. But for now, we have Mr. Dr. Adam Tima in the studio with us, our local social media expert, as we like to say around here. Absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Tima, for joining us tonight. So let's just jump right into it here.
Cool.
Social media, even Mr. Dobb alluded to it.
Yeah.
It's huge. How have the candidates been using social media on a daily basis, monthly basis to get their campaigns off the ground?
I think it starts as a rallying cry. I think it gets people thinking. It's a great way to get soundbite politics started, right? So if you've got a slogan you want to get out, you want to get a quick idea out, Twitter is the best way to make it happen. It was designed to work that way, and so if you know how to use it to your advantage, you can. We saw it work well for Obama in 2012. He was able to capitalize on that, where most of the Republican candidates across the board weren't able to get to it as well. But now we see it evened out. Now we see both parties understanding how to work social media, which is a blessing and a curse, right? Because we can see it work well to get those initial thoughts out there. But, I mean, Trump had his Twitter taken away from him over the weekend, right? So, which was probably a smart move from the campaign's perspective, because the last thing you want to do is have him do one of his typical tirades. So if you can control that, you can control message more. And anyone who does public relations or advertising or marketing knows by being able to control that message, you're able to keep things kind of at status quo, and you don't rock the boat so close to the election. But we know, has been much more, shall we say, loose with his social media. But both candidates were smart in how they used it to promote their brand, and how they used it to get the message they wanted to get across. And obviously it worked.
So to your point about promoting the brand, what's the future of social media in politics? Do you think it'll replace advertising almost?
I don't think so. I think we have such a strong tradition of advertising on television, radio, what have you, that we're going to continue to see that across in our political spectrum. What we are going to see, I would suggest, is a more broad understanding of what we can do with social media. We know Tumblr can do this. We know Twitter can do that. We know Instagram can do this. Facebook can do that. And as the next iteration of those social media platforms comes out, we're going to see them trying to figure it out more and more. But I think it's here to stay. I don't think it's going to overwhelm us, but I think, unless you are on my Facebook wall, then you've probably been overwhelmed. But I think we're going to see it become more of an ubiquitous part of the political process.
So when you think Twitter, Facebook, Periscope, Facebook
Sure.
Live, Snapchat, you think a younger generation.
Sure.
So who are these candidates really reaching when they use Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, that kind of thing?
Well, user demographics have shifted. If you look at Facebook user demographics, you'll see that they've aged. And as we see the age for users starting to go up, we'll see the next iteration show up, and then the younger folk jump into that, and that's how it kind of cycles through. We've seen that with every social media platform that's come out. So they're reaching that group of voters who has become self-declared undecided, self-declared kind of disconnected from the political realm, and also understanding that if we were to do a random poll of 100 students on this campus, and we were to ask, where do you get your news from? The majority would say they get it from Reddit, they get it from their news feeds on Facebook, they get it from their Twitter feed, whatever the case may be, and whoever's retweeting that story. So they're not going after Reuters or Associated Press, they're going after what Kanye's sending you. They're going after whatever, probably not Kanye, but you get what I'm talking about, right? So these candidates know that's a voting block, which is why we'll never see TV ads go away, because that's a voting block. We'll never see print ads or the collection of, I think, about 200 now mailers I've gotten, and I'm actually collecting those, because that's a voting block. So each voting block, they're going to go after a certain way, and the voting block that is 18 to 24, 18 to 30, they're going to go after through social media. That's just the way it's going to work now.
So the memes have been abundant this year.
Yeah.
What's the Twitterverse saying tonight? What's Facebook saying tonight? I mean, how's it been going? We're just getting into it, but what's it look like right now?
The last thing I just saw was Donald Trump dressed up in a Confederate uniform, Hillary Clinton dressed up in a Union uniform with a really nice sepia tone that says "The Battle for Twittersburg."
Oh, wow.
That is the last thing I just saw pop maybe about 5 minutes ago. And it's a story that someone has written about this. I'm fascinated to see if Twittersburg becomes a hashtag itself. Because the moment we see a term show up, nasty women being an example, right? He made the mistake of saying you're nasty or you're a nasty woman on the third debate, and Elizabeth Warren got a hold of that, and next thing we know, that becomes a rallying cry. Same with Pantsuit Nation, same with all these different things that you wouldn't expect. But the memes and the hashtags, those have become ways to rally around flags, for lack of a better term, to get people excited and energized. And you can say it, and those who know get it.
Perfect.
Right, it's the inside joke.
Yep.
But those when you say to someone else, like, I don't understand, like, well, then you just don't know. And I think that's where we're going to see it happening.
Dr. Chima, you will be joining us several times throughout the night, and we thank you for joining us for now. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow the Omaha News on Facebook and Twitter at UNO the Omaha News throughout tonight's program for additional content. Send us your comments using the hashtag #TONVote2016. After this, we'll check in with our reporters at the Bacon and Ashford events, and we'll take another look at the latest election results.
We'll also be joined live in studio by former Nebraska Governor and State Senator Ben Nelson. Don't go away.
Watch ICU Learning English on the Knowledge Network.
Bit
about how you're feeling right now. One thing you would like our viewers to know about this state.
The importance of volunteerism.
What are you saying to folks?
I'm here to discuss these images.
When you can take that knowledge and that expertise and that passion in terms that they're all going to understand.
They need to know the real stories.
I'm Kathy Wyatt. Join us for Consider This each week on NET1.
You've always known you were a leader, someone who works hard to achieve your goals. You can see it. You can see your success in front of you. You pursue a college education for the old-fashioned reasons, to learn, to make yourself more valuable, to succeed. You need a place that celebrates your ambition and positions you alongside visionary people just like you. You, my friend, belong here, the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
The Creative Production Lab is a space for students to express themselves through artistic creation. Whether they want to do something visual, such as using the 3D printer or laser cutter, or if they want to create an audio project in the Whisper Room, the options are endless within the Creative Production Lab.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Omaha News reporter Justin Eidelman is at the Don Bacon Election Watch event tonight and joins us now to give us a feel for how this race is shaping up for the Republicans of District 2. Justin?
Thanks, Avery. They're currently doing a prayer here at the time, so I'm going to be as quiet as possible. But we did just get done with the Star Spangled Banner. It really lit the crowd up. It's a great environment here. Don Bacon still is not here at the time, still watching the results with his family. But as you can see behind me, there are no more seats to sit down. So this has filled up very fastly. And even Senator Fisher and Mayor Stothert have been spotted in the building. So they both have endorsed Don Bacon. But we will keep you updated all night. And apologize for talking so quiet during this prayer. But we'll keep you updated here at Regency Marriott for the Omaha News. I'm Justin Eidelman. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you, Justin. Yeah, Don Bacon's still not there, still at home with his family, watching to see, how the results will sway either way. It's a pretty interesting election, and we've talked with multiple people so far tonight already saying this is just, even at the local level as much as the national level, it's just completely different than anything we've seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been tight all night long, and more people are endorsing Mr. Bacon as Justin said it, and none other bigger than Paul Ryan. And Hewitt's been giving Don Bacon some money to use in his campaign just to get his feet off the ground. And you got to think that that's really going to boost the Republicans in this section of Nebraska. Getting that big endorsement is just huge.
Yeah, and like we've talked about before, it's important for Don Bacon to expand on his policy, right? Because he's spoken a lot about ISIS, and yes, it is a big issue. Although I think in the past couple months maybe it's died down a little bit. But I just think he needs to expand a little bit more, and we saw some of our political experts earlier say it probably would be a good idea for him to do so. Obviously, you stick to your strengths. If you're a military guy, then it's a lot easier for you to discuss that. But I mean, I guess it makes sense for him to do so. But when you look at his policy, obviously a lot of it is very military based, and even in the debates, I just noticed. When it came down to policy, I just feel sometimes maybe he was a little more lost than Ashford, and maybe that's down to him not having very much of a political background, but that's just an observation that we've seen so far.
Yeah, no, and you definitely have a point there. I mean, you look at Brad Ashford, who in the past few years we do know he's gone independent, he's gone Democrat, he's definitely switched once or twice, but he's just been more consistent. So you're looking at that with Don Bacon. I mean, to your point, during the debate, he definitely had more of a solid footing when it came to the military. He wants to retool the military. He wants to reduce headquarters staffs. I mean, he wants to do all these things, and he really focused on on the military as a whole, and he focused on Bellevue as well, which is really is a local poll. Omaha News reporter Sierra Watson is at District 2 Democratic Election Watch Party tonight. She joins us live to talk a little bit about the mood among Brad Ashford and his supporters. Sierra. We'll try and get Sierra here up soon, but we're also following about a dozen different Senate races tonight. The Republicans are hoping to hold on to the majority after tonight. They are currently occupy 54 seats of the Democrats. They occupy 44. The other 2 seats belong to independents. So let's kind of start with that. I mean, if Hillary wins tonight, and that's an if Hillary wins tonight, you think that they break that tie. You think they finally reach that threshold of finally getting the Senate back to lean Democratic. And if Hillary wins, the vice president breaks that tie. So you have to think that if Hillary can come out on top tonight, get those Senate seats, that are those ever important senator seats, that the Democrats will own the House.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that as well. When you look at it, okay, so it's 54-46 right now, and we don't know who's going to win the presidency, and we don't know what's going to happen to the Senate, but looking at it, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. Also, the other thing is the Supreme Court justice, and we'll get into all of this later on tonight, throughout the night, but right now we are being joined by Senator Ben Nelson. He served in the Senate from 2001 to 2013. Senator, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I've got my seat adjusted now, so I'm at the right level.
Sitting up a little more than you were. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. I was curious about the idea about the Senate. When I went to Washington in 2001, we were 50-50, and the vice president was the tiebreaker. And then it switched. Senator Jeffords from Vermont switched to an independent and joined with the Democrats, and so there was 51-49. What I found was that when the Senate was close in membership on the Democratic side and Republican side, there was a better chance of working together. Once either side got a sizable majority and increased their margin, there was less working together. So, however it turns out, my expectation, my hope is it'll be close. Close is good. From those who are partisan, they want to be the majority leader. They want to be the majority in the Senate, and I understand that too. But if you're looking at it as a person from the outside wanting to watch the inside, close is good.
So you're saying 50-50 is a lot better than 51-49?
Well, or 51-49 is okay.
Or better than what we have right now?
Or clearly better than what we have right now.
And why do you think that is?
Well,
why do you think they work better that way?
Well, because if you're going to try to get something done, you have to have somebody from the other side help you. And if you don't need somebody from the other side, it's amazing how the leaders will say, well, we don't care, we'll just do what we want to do. And if I thought that one party had all the right ideas and could do everything alone, that would be different. But I found in Washington that when you were able to reach across the aisle and bring people together, whether it was to get the new headquarters for STRATCOM here in the Omaha and Bellevue and area in Sarpy County, that was important. When we wanted to get judges, federal appeals judges, up or down votes, we put together a gang of 14, 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans. We were able to work together to get things done because that's what was required. Otherwise, you were going to have stalemate. You also get stalemate if one of the sides doesn't have enough to do it all on their own. But they think they have enough to where they want to stall, and they don't want to work with their opposition leaders and others.
Looking at this national election, looking at both parties, do you think both parties wish they could have picked maybe somebody better, a better candidate?
Well, I'm not sure about when you say parties. I do know that there's a lot of consternation about the 2 major candidates, that there's a lot of anger on both sides of the aisle, 85% maybe of those people voting today. Count me in the 15%. Yeah, I think that there was just a general feeling, yeah, there's somebody else out there. But, you know, at times you vote for the lesser of evils. You vote for somebody you like more than others. But you don't always get that optimal decision-making process where you have the two candidates that you say, I can live with either one. Now, you know, there's been times like that, but this has been one of those times where the negative campaigning and the back and the forth and calling each other names and stuff like that has, I think, jaded a lot of the electorate to where, yeah, sometimes it's like at school, you get into a fight on the playground, teacher took you in, you both had to sit in the chair, you know. So there is an element of that.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Nelson, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we are going to try and go back to Sierra, who is with Ashford's camp. Sierra, are you with us?
We're live here at the Brad Ashford campaign at the Ramadi here on 72nd and Grover.
Very great
We're
to meet you.
a large crowd later, along with Brad Ashford, to give a speech about his campaign. Brad Ashford also said earlier that he's not nervous about the outcome of tonight's events, that he is hopeful, and that he also kept his promises. So he looks forward to a win later on tonight. And that's all we have here. Back to you, Avery.
Coming up, we'll join our newsroom and take another look at the state election results.
Don't go anywhere as Vote 2016 continues right here on the Knowledge Network.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Let's go now to our newsroom where reporter Tierra Shere is standing by for some of the latest results. Tierra.
Thank you. So several more polls have closed and a lot more states have been called. In Florida, Trump is still winning by a very narrow margin, one of less than 1%. Again, this is a very important race for him. His lead in Georgia is widening by a very large margin, and he is up by about 43%. In South Carolina, the polls were actually just called, and Trump is the projected winner. In Virginia, Trump is currently leading by less than 10%. In Maryland, it looks like Clinton will pick up those 10 electoral votes. The state has only voted Republican 3 times since 1960, so this isn't too surprising. In Michigan, Clinton is winning by about 7%. And finally, in New Hampshire, Clinton is currently winning. The state has voted Democrat in 5 of the last 6 elections, and as of now, this election seems to be no different. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Tiara. Nebraska is one of 3 states making a decision tonight about capital punishment. The other 2 states are Oklahoma and California. Contributing to the debate is more awareness about rising death penalty costs and an increasing number of questions over whether the death penalty deters crime. Still, the country is largely split on the issue. According to a recent poll from the Pew Research Center, approximately 50% of Americans support the death penalty and roughly 42% of Americans oppose it. Adding to a little confusion to the issue is wording used on the Nebraska ballot. Because the state legislature abolished the death penalty in May 2015, the decision facing Nebraskans today is whether to retain or repeal the ban. A vote for retain is a vote to keep the ban on the death penalty initiated by the state legislature. A vote to repeal is a vote to reinstate the death penalty in Nebraska. A reminder that polls do close at 8. We will be sure to bring you the results of that decision as soon as we get it.
And joining us now is the Political Science Department Chair at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, Dr. Jody Nethery Castro. Thank you for joining us here tonight.
Nice to be with you.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks.
I just want to get your thoughts overall on this election before we jump into anything. What have your thoughts been about, the process from the primaries to where we are tonight, and where do you see both these candidates sitting?
Well, on the presidential side?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been an interesting campaign season. I think I would say probably unprecedented, actually. I don't think I've seen anything like this before. I guess I probably share, like probably most of the viewers out there, a readiness for it to be over in some ways, even though this is my field and this is what we do. My colleagues and I have talked a lot about this election. I think the tenor of the campaign has been troublesome for those of us who teach politics and who care about classrooms and what it's like in the classrooms to talk about issues of politics. We try to model the idea that no matter what your beliefs are, you come to the table and you come to the classroom and you're able to talk about these things in a civil way. Even though we all have our biases, we all have our our strong beliefs. You want to be able to if not in a university, where are you going to be able to learn to be able to come together and have kind of civil exchange? And the fact that we've seen less than civil exchange happening from our leaders at the national level has been difficult, and I think it's been a hard thing to try to talk about with students and to even explain. I've been talking with a lot of international students, and they've asked me questions about how does the is this a normal thing for your elections? And so, in some sense, I think a lot of us feel, and I have children also, I should say that. So a lot of us feel that we'd like to see some sense of, even though we've got different opinions on these things, at the end of the day, we have a system that forces us to compromise in order to get things done. And I'd like to, day after the election, be able to hopefully see some of that happening.
Speaking a little bit, you mentioned some international students.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just like to get your thought on the importance of the Latino vote on this election. We maybe talk about that, as well as this, notation that Donald Trump wants to build a wall. What's been the feeling from international students or from Latinos that he's saying these things, and how big of an impact is their vote in this election?
Yeah, that's a really good question, I think. I mean, I can speak even from the standpoint of my own family, because my husband's Latino, and I have daughters who are Latina. So, for us, it's even a personal issue. I took my daughter my 15-year-old daughter to a Trump rally when he was in Council Bluffs here, and she expressed, "Mom, if I go there, is this going to be? Are people going to be hostile to me? Am I going to be in danger?" Mm-hmm. And that the idea that young people are getting this message is something that how do you counter that? So I think that's a little bit troubling, and it was fine. And ultimately, the thing that I guess I would say that's good about that is that, I think despite some of the rhetoric, I think that, things get kind of drummed up at these kinds of events. It was fine. And, I think that, what we're seeing in the polls and in the actual as the votes are coming in, it looks like that has been sort of a driving force to drive more Latinos to the polls. So we're seeing some record turnout from Latinos, which is really interesting because it suggests that you can mobilize voters based on issues, that are in this case a negative issue, driving people to say we're going to mobilize and show up in larger numbers.
Dr. Nethery Castro, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Nice to be with you.
Some polls in the eastern United States have been closed, going on about 2 hours now. And standing by in our newsroom are Jose Rodriguez and Alejandro Cortez to bring us another update on the most recent state numbers. Jose.
Thank you, Alex. We have Alabama, who has not voted Democrat since 1976, when he voted for Jimmy Carter. Right now, Trump is winning for 62% points, while Clinton is 36%. We also have data from Connecticut, where Hillary Clinton is winning for 68% points. We also have data for DC, for Delaware, where Trump is winning with 55% points. We also have Washington, D.C., where Democrats have been winning every time since 1961. We also have Illinois, where Trump is winning with 42% points. Kansas, Trump is winning Kansas with 72% points. And Maine, we also have Maine, where Clinton is winning also. Maine is winning with.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Jose. We're going to move on to North Carolina. Since we last reported, the statistics have changed. Hillary Clinton is now leading the polls with 51%. In Ohio, the polls have also changed, with currently Hillary Clinton at 52% and Donald Trump at 44%. West Virginia has also shifted. 61% goes to Donald Trump. Hillary Clinton still trailing him with 33%. We have word from Mississippi that Hillary Clinton is currently up on the polls with 58.3%. The Mississippi has voted Republican every election since the 1980s. For Missouri, we have Hillary Clinton leading Donald Trump leading with 49%, Hillary Clinton trailing with 47%. In Missouri, from 1904 through 2004, Missouri has got it right every election, with the exception of 1956, when they preferred Stevenson over Dwight Eisenhower. And in Pennsylvania, Hillary Clinton is way ahead with 81%. Thank you, and back to the studio.
Well, thank you guys very much. Nebraska polls close in 2 minutes. We'll have our first results shortly after the hour.
We'll also discuss the nature of political advertising we've seen over the past few months. Vote 2016 continues right here on the Knowledge Network.
The UNO TV team teaches students the skills they need to take professional jobs in the Omaha community. Through paid positions, students build their skills in lighting, audio, camera work, and other essential control room operations. Programs air locally on TKN and statewide on NHE World. UNO Television, student crew, professional staff, award-winning results.
Omaha News.
We cover everything from news and politics to arts, events, and medicine.
A youthful perspective on today's stories from the UNO School of Communication.
Young reporters with a weekly look at the Omaha community.
Watch the Omaha News every Wednesday at 4 p.m. on TKN.
The University of Nebraska at Omaha is a place for tomorrow's leaders. A place where individuals converge on a path to success, getting the attention and direction they need as they begin their career. It's where students take pride in serving Omaha, a city we've invested in for more than 100 years. UNO is a place where greatness begins. The University of Nebraska at Omaha.
From the studios of UNO Television, this is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election, presented by the University of Nebraska at Omaha School of Communication.
The polls are closed in Nebraska, along with most eastern coast states and many Midwest states as well. This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election. I'm Alex Abler.
And I'm Avery Wink. We will have coverage and updates of all the races over the next 2 hours. Tonight, the Omaha News team is at the election watch gatherings of 2nd District Congressman Brad Ashford and his opponent, Republican Don Bacon. We will have the results of that race and the first numbers coming up.
We will also have updates on how each state voted for the president, and that's where we'll start. Polling places in many eastern time zone states closed more than an hour ago. Tiara Sheree is our newsroom with the latest results from those states. Tiara.
So the polls are changing rapidly, and a lot of the numbers are changing. In Florida, Trump is still winning by a very narrow margin, one of less than 1%. Again, this state is very important for him to win. Some feel as though he needs this state in order to win the election. His lead in Georgia is widening in a way that he would describe as bigly, and the numbers are up by more than 43 percentage points. In South Carolina, the state was just called and Trump is the projected winner. In Virginia, Trump is currently leading by less than 10 percentage points. And in Maryland, it looks like Clinton will earn those 10 electoral votes. The state has only voted Republican 3 times since 1960. In Michigan, Clinton is winning by about 7 percentage points. And finally, in New Hampshire, Clinton is currently winning here. The state has voted Democrat in 5 of the last 6 elections, and as of now, it looks like this election will be no different. We'll have more numbers as they come in. Back to you in the newsroom.
Thanks, Tiara. The candidates have crisscrossed the country, making personal appearances at rallies, especially in the closing days. But advertising has been at the heart of the campaigns, as it usually is. Tonight, joining us to talk about the advertising in this campaign is UNO School of Communication Director, Professor Hugh Riley. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Exciting night.
Absolutely. All around the country, everybody's watching.
And for all of you that this is your first election, I envy you. This is a great election to have for your first election.
So, Director Riley, we'll jump right into it here. What's advertising been like this year compared to other years?
You know, there's been, you see these cookie cutter ads, and we've seen our fair share of those. You've all seen them. It's the ominous music, and they have these little unflattering pictures of the candidates, and there's these this edited headlines and things like this with very quickly designated where the source is, and they've been effective. They're negative ads, but I think one of the things that's been really different this year, at least in the presidential election, is Hillary Clinton really hasn't used those ads. She hasn't had to. There's so much negative material that she's had. I mean, I think of the shots, probably the most effective ad that I think she's had is the one of the little children watching TV with the clips of Donald Trump saying. I mean, that is so powerful and so effective. She hasn't had to use those stereotypical cookie cutter ads. Her ads have been, he supplied her with all kinds of material. And I don't think the reverse is true for him. His negative ads against her are more of the traditional ads with the implied headlines and all of these kinds of things. So that's been a departure.
To your point there, Professor Riley, personality politics versus issue politics. What do you think the ads have been more geared towards on both sides?
Well, there's no doubt on both sides they've been very much personality politics, and you know, I don't think that serves the country well. But I think once one side went that way, the other side had to go that way, and they both have such high negatives to start with. That's the easy target. That's the easy thing to go after. I think we would have been better served if we had a clearer idea of what their policies were and what their attitudes were about certain issues of the day. We really don't know. I mean, I think we know a little bit more about Clinton's attitudes and issues of the day than we do about Trump's. He's mostly talked about things in generalities, but the focus has been so much on personalities, and that's unfortunate because I don't think that serves us well.
When it comes to spending, Hillary has been spending a little more. Trump, obviously, we've heard through the media that he hasn't been spending a lot. What do you think about that?
I heard that Hillary outspent him, is it 2-to-1 in some places? Two things. I think initially Trump was getting all this free media, so he didn't feel he had to spend. He didn't feel he had to do any advertising. When I say advertising, obviously there's lots of different types of advertising, but for politics, television is the primary medium used for advertising. He was getting all kinds of free media time. He didn't feel he needed to spend the money. So maybe it was arrogance on his part. I don't know. I saw a recent article that was talking about where Hillary spent a lot more money. It reflected in the poll numbers that there was a direct correlation between the money that was spent and her poll numbers increasing. So I think it's hard to deny the power of advertising.
We had Dr. Adam Tima up here about 30 minutes ago. We talked about social media. So how important overall is advertising to the campaign, and how much do you think it's going to start to shift to social media? That's actually a very good question. I think social media, the easy answer would be, well, social media just affects one portion of the population, but that's not true. I think social media it's used increasingly by people in my generation. And I think the challenge with social media is that we don't yet have an accepted way to measure it. A nationally accepted way to measure it. And so it's hard for the ad agencies to say, well, here's our return on this investment. However, there's no doubt that the millennials, their preferred way of getting their mail or getting their information is this. So that means social media. So I think you will continue to see a shift towards that. I don't think the other mediums will ever go away, but they're going to get a smaller and smaller piece of the pie. With the insurgence of that and the smaller pieces of the pie, do you think TV ads will ever go away? No. 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 And the TV ad might be on your mobile device. It's still a TV ad. It still has the elements of a television ad. Although if you look at a lot of the stuff that's on social media, it's more of a print ad than anything else, just the way it's formulated. No, I don't think it'll go away. The tools we use change, but the knowing who your audience is, crafting a good message, all of those things, they still stay the same. You still have to have all those things. So we kind of alluded to earlier all the free advertising Trump has gotten. How much did that play into effectiveness of ads? Do you think he should have been more proactive instead of using that free media? Because, he says himself, any press is good press. So do you think he should have utilized that more earlier on, or do you think he's sitting pretty solid? Well, I guess we'll find out in a few hours. But had I been advising him, I would have said he should have done more advertising early on. You don't want the other person to create your image. You don't want your opponent to be able to be the one who says this is who this person is. You want to build your own brand. You don't want somebody else building it for you. And I think, to a great extent, Secretary Clinton has crafted his image. He's added to it himself, but I think she has been successful in saying this is who he is. And if you let them do that, if you don't fight that early on, then you get behind the eight ball and it's harder to overcome that. Professor Riley, thank you so much for your insight tonight, and thank you for joining us on the program. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Enjoyed it.
Our reporter Justin Eidelman has been at the Election Watch event for Republican congressional candidate Don Bacon all evening. He joins us live via Skype with the latest. Justin?
Thanks, guys. Deb Fisher's actually getting introduced right now to the podium to say a few words about Don Bacon. And as you can tell, it is packed up in here. We're kind of getting pushed back towards the news media podium. So it's exciting. The polls are closed. We do not know the official results yet. But once again, we will keep you updated here at Regency Marriott. For the Omaha News, I'm Justin Eidelman.
The Brad Ashford Commission is waiting for those numbers to come in, just like Justin said. Just sitting there waiting. We just heard Deb Fisher. She's starting to roll for him. We're getting national people just saying, Don Bacon should be the guy. Now we're getting local people. Avery, how big is that for a guy who really hasn't been around that much?
Well, it's definitely a big deal. To see it happening now, I don't think is a huge surprise. Obviously, because the race is over, right? So it doesn't mean a whole lot. Now, once we get the numbers, it'll be very interesting to see, because I think this is a race that nobody's really been able to call. We've been trying to pick people's minds for, hey, who do you think's going to win? Is it going to be Ashford? Is it going to be Bacon? Nobody really knows. It's kind of up in the air. Whereas maybe past elections, you've really been able to nail down which candidate is looking better. You would think that Ashford, given his history, would have the advantage, but when you look at the endorsements and the money that Bacon's been getting, it's hard to deny that he's sitting pretty.
Yeah, he's definitely sitting pretty, and someone who should be as well, given the state, is Brad Ashford. Omaha News reporter Sierra Watson is at the Ashford election night right now, and she joins us live. Sierra, how are you?
Hey, we're here live at the Brad Ashford campaign on 72nd and Grover and the Ramada Inn. We're just pulling to the side. Cody Ewing, the communications director for Brad Ashford's campaign. Just want to ask him a couple quick questions. So, Cody, what do you think about Brad Ashford's chances for tonight?
Hey, we're excited. We've been putting in 9 months of work, more than that. I mean, we've been on the ground for months and months. Turning out people, engaging them, registering them to vote, all for today. We've had a lot of great conversations on the doorsteps about the issues and where Brad Ashford, represents those people, what those issues are. So we feel good about it. I mean, it's all up to the voters. We'll find out soon how it breaks down, but we feel good about it.
Okay, and one last question, please. So do you think that Brad Ashford, I guess, stands a chance then winning with the political climate as it is today?
Well, I think when he ran for the first time in 2014 for Congress, he ran on a bipartisan pledge. He said he'd make 25 friends across the aisle and work with them, and he's done that. He's delivered for Omaha. We're going to have a new VA medical facility for our veterans and a new infectious disease research center at the University of Nebraska. So he's really delivered in the last 2 years, and it's really about getting that message out to voters. And I think we have a great chance. I mean, I don't think it's not about party here; it's bipartisan.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Cody, for your input, and we look forward to seeing Brad later.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, and that's what we have here tonight. The crowd is still pouring in here at the Brad Ashford campaign, and we hope to see Brad later on tonight giving us a speech. And back to you, Avery.
Thanks, Sierra. Democrats are hoping to take back control of the U.S. Senate after tonight's election.
It's been 6 years since the Republicans seized control of the Senate in President Obama's first midterm election. Now, all of those Republicans are up for re-election, along with some longer-term veteran senators. Some of them are seen as vulnerable.
Republicans do hold a 56-44 margin over the Democrats in the Senate. Democrats need to capture at least 6 seats to have a majority if Hillary Clinton wins in this election. 7 seats if she does not. We're watching how the vote is going in 12 races. Polls have closed in some of those states, and we have an update. So it looks like Rubio in Florida, 52% over Democrat Murphy, 44%. 90% have reported in so far, so that is not final, but I mean, you could view that as close, a little far apart, but that is what it is right now in Florida. Rubio leading Murphy 52-44. In Illinois, the Democrat is winning in Duckworth 50%. the Democrat out there in Illinois. Kirk, 44%. Again, just 6%, but still only 2% have reported in. That's going to change a lot here in the next few hours. Indiana, Republican Young, 53%. Baugh is 40%. Again, a slightly close race, but that one's at 52% reported. So as the night goes on, we're going to see a growing number. So a lot of these are still in the early stages. Wisconsin, it's still 0-0. We're getting those numbers in very slowly. We haven't presented the reported percent just yet, but we're feeding that in here as soon as we can. Missouri, Democratic here, as it kind of leaned Republican for the electoral vote, but right now Democrat Kander is in lead by 58%. The Republican Blunt is trailing by 38%, but that is only 2% reported right now. We have Nevada, Cortez, Mastro, 0%, Heck, 0%. Still, we're getting those numbers in as we've seen the Electoral College move from right to left here this evening. So we're starting to get into that West Coast timeline here as those polls are kind of dripping in for us. Ohio, another battleground state here tonight. Strickland, 40% for the Democrats. Portland, Republican, 55%. 34% is reported, as we've seen on CNN tonight. Too close to call right now. Those are still trickling in here. North Carolina, dead split. 61% have reported in. Ross at 48%, Burr at 48%. Dead split. North Carolina, again, a big battleground state for those Senate seats. New Hampshire, Ayotte is 42%. Hassan is 53%, 8% reported. Again, we're seeing some of these slowly start to come in, Avery, throughout the night. Tomey, 25%, McGinty, 72% for Pennsylvania. The Democrat getting the nod there in Pennsylvania, but again, 1% reported as of right now. Maine, 0-0, though those numbers are still coming in here. Short and Hill, Republican and Democratic seat there. And that might be all what we have here.
And we're being joined again by Dr. Jody Nethery-Castro. She's the chair of the UNO Department of Political Science. Dr. Nethery-Castro, thanks for being back with us. We had a nice chat earlier about how the Latino vote is so big in this election, how that's those comments by Trump sort of affected you at a personal level. I kind of want to switch gears and look at the system we use. What do you think of using the Electoral College, and what would it look like in Nebraska or Omaha if we used the popular vote?
Well, that's a good question. Nebraska probably isn't going to look a whole lot different without using the popular vote versus the Electoral College. The idea with the Electoral College was to sort of take it out of the hands of the masses, I suppose, and to kind of balance out a little bit the idea of smaller states and at the time, put it in the hands of a smaller group of statesmen. The idea being that that maybe we couldn't quite trust the unruly masses. The reality is that in a state like ours, where you've got a strong Republican majority, you're not going to end up with a huge difference. But the one interesting thing, of course, being the fact that Nebraska is allowed to split up its electoral votes. And so because of the concentration of Democrats in District 2, there is the possibility of that district being Democrat as opposed to the other the electoral vote. So one electoral vote could go Democratic, and it did go that way in 2008. Since then, the district has been boundaries have been redrawn in order to, party in power likes to do those things in order to try to solidify its strength in those areas. So the Republicans had an interest in redrawing those boundaries in order to try to strengthen their chances of keeping Republican control in that area. And so they've kind of districted out some of the Democrats and made it more likely to keep it Republican. So we were just trying to follow the election returns tonight, and we haven't seen officially the count on that yet, but projections were that it was probably going to be Republican, but we're not sure, so it'll be interesting. It went back to Republican control in 2012.
I did a story on the Blue Dot, actually, and I had talked to the Democratic chair of Douglas County, and it was interesting talking about that redistricting. Do you see this sort of dot going blue again in the future with that redistricting and more of Sarpy County being entered into that?
Well, you know, a lot of it breaks down on things like turnout. So, you know, you get a mobilizing election. I think one of the hopes on the Democrat side in this election was that, you know, there would be enough impetus on the part of Democrats to turn out in really high numbers. Because, you know, if you really look at it, there are more Republicans registered, I believe, now in that district, but there are a lot of independents, like a quarter of, I think, voters in there are like independents. And so, you know, if you mobilize those voters one way or the other, you can shift that balance. And so it's easy for it to be a swing area. So, you know, I think it's definitely possible in the future. And so that's going to make it interesting. For those of us who study elections, it makes it interesting for sure.
We've had a chance to look at the numbers so far. What have you thought about, you know, how it's shaping up? Are there any states that maybe have surprised you? Anything?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. You know, I've been talking to students tonight probably more than I have been watching some of the returns coming in. So I haven't seen a whole lot of the specifics. So far, I haven't seen a whole lot of really surprising. You know, most of the things I think have broken down kind of as predicted. One of the things that has been kind of interesting is that we've got an election watching party going on in a different part of the building with a lot of students here, and we've got different channels on, different television channels on, and the predictions about states are and electoral votes are different on the different channels. And so I had an international student a little while ago ask me, well, why does Fox News say that there's 67 electoral votes for Trump and CNN says it's 48? And so I had to sort of explain, well, I don't know that they're using different math per se, but I think that they are calling some states before, you know, they decide at which times they're going to call the states and you know, make predictions on that. So it's an interesting sort of study, I think, to talk about how you call states. And, you know, we have some interesting examples, certainly in the past, of the news getting it wrong sometimes and having to backtrack and say, well, actually, the state didn't go this direction. So it's always fun to have these events.
Very good. Well, Dr. Nethery Castor, thank you for joining us. We look forward to talking to you throughout the night, and hopefully, you know, you're getting a chance to look at those numbers, and maybe we can talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks.
When we come back, we have more numbers in the presidential race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
You're watching the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election, on NET World and the Knowledge Network.
You've always known you were a leader, someone who works hard to achieve your goals. You can see it. You can see your success in front of you. You pursue a college education for the old-fashioned reasons, to learn, to make yourself more valuable, to succeed. You need a place that celebrates your ambition and positions you alongside visionary people just like you. You, my friend, belong here, the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
The UNO TV team teaches students the skills they need to take professional jobs in the Omaha community. Through paid positions, students build their skills in lighting, audio, camera work, and other essential control room operations. Programs air locally on TKN and statewide on NET World. UNO Television, student crew, professional staff, award-winning results.
Just recently, MAV Radio has won several awards, both from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association as well as the Broadcast Education Association. And I think it just is proof that our students are doing work that is equivalent, if not surpassing, other students around the nation. So I'm really proud of where we've come, and I can't wait to see where we're going.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our live election coverage from UNO Television and the UNO School of Communication.
We have more results from the states where polls have closed in the Eastern and Central time zones. Let's go to the newsroom where Jose Rodriguez and Alejandra Cortez are ready with those numbers. Guys?
Thank you, Avery. We have results from Connecticut, who right now has 33% points for Trump and 62% for Clinton. We also have results for Kansas, where Trump has 40% points and Clinton has 54%. The last state I have results for is Arkansas, where Trump has 57% points and Clinton has 37%. Alejandra, what do you have?
Okay, well, in North Carolina, the polls have switched. Now we have a new leader, Donald Trump, with 49%, with Hillary Clinton at 47%. At Ohio, we also have Hillary Clinton leading with 48%, as opposed to Donald Trump with 47%. West Virginia shows that Donald Trump is leading with 64%, as opposed to Hillary Clinton with 30%. Mississippi has Donald Trump leading at 52.4%, as opposed to Hillary Clinton with 45%. Missouri shows that Hillary Clinton is leading by 49.1%, as opposed to Donald Trump at 47.5%. New Jersey shows Clinton leading with 51.7%. Pennsylvania shows Hillary Clinton winning with 70%, as opposed to Donald Trump at only 27.1%. Rhode Island shows Hillary Clinton in the lead with 56.8% and Donald Trump at 38.7%. Tennessee currently shows Donald Trump at 68.3%, Hillary Clinton trailing with only 28.2%. And Texas shows Donald Trump leading with 49.6%, as opposed to Hillary Clinton with 46.3%. That's all for right now. Back to the studio, you guys.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Donald Trump has been all over Twitter this election campaign. Some of his tweets have definitely caused a stir of controversy. Joining us now again is Dr. Adam Tima. You've been running back and forth all evening. Anything crazy on the side of Donald Trump?
You know, honestly, no. Both from what I can tell, both the official handles for the campaigns are pretty much. They're kind of quiet right now. What I am seeing is the two big hashtags are "I'm with her" and "I'm with him," and those hashtags are the ones that have probably been the most active right now. I'm seeing probably a tweet every 30 to 45 seconds on both of them. It's interesting as the electoral map shifts and the votes start coming in, and one person's ahead and also the other person's ahead. You literally can see it ramp up and slow down for that particular person's hashtag as it progresses. So I can be watching TweetDeck, I can be watching my columns move around, and I can tell you what's happening before I even end up looking up at the map, and go, oh, yep, that's what's happening. So
we've seen kind of with the resurgence of smartphones and other devices, selfies. And something that we've really towed the line with the past few months is whether or not to take a selfie with your ballot.
Yep.
Justin Timberlake got in trouble. Donald Trump this morning got in trouble for it. So why is that such a big deal?
Because it's illegal. To actually take a picture of your ballot once you've filled it out, that I believe that breaks voter law. I'm not sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that's a federal law. So if you can't walk into and actually take a picture, like woohoo, everything up to that is fine. But when you're voting, you're not supposed to be able to publicly display the document. That's just not allowed. So the fact that they were doing that, yeah, it's great and it's wonderful. Hey, look at me, I'm voting. But yeah, you shouldn't do that. It's a bad idea.
What if I decide, I go to the poll today, I vote for Gary Johnson, and I scribble in my number and I take a picture of that, but don't put my face in it? Is that considered the same thing, or do you think that still toes the line?
Your handle's still attached to it. Your account is still a part of that. You're the one posting it up, therefore it's still a problem. Yeah. So in other words, the rule should be don't take a picture of your filled out ballot. Just don't do it. Don't. That's a bad idea. So.
Well, we're hoping to get a little more social media stuff as we continue on the evening. Has Hillary been pretty quiet, or?
Yeah, I'd say both of their handles have been pretty calm. That's one thing I've been trying to track to see if anything's coming in. Then you get things once in a while. You say, it's like, thank you, Florida, thank you this, thank you that, whatever the case may be. It's really going to be, I think, surrogates that are going to be, and hashtags, again, going to the previous conversation we had. Tracking those hashtags is where we're going to see the most traffic.
Absolutely. Well, our light in the dark of social media, Dr. Adam Tima, thank you so much for being with us here again. Yep. We hope to talk to you one more time before our coverage ends this evening. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. See you in a bit.
As we mentioned a few minutes ago, Democrats are hoping to retake the Senate. To be safe, they need to take at least 7 seats this election. We're watching 12 races, and CNN has called several of them. So let's take a look at the balance of the parties when we get back.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our election night coverage of the presidential vote, as well as local races and issues. I'm Avery Wink.
And I'm Alex Abler. Let's go to the newsroom where Tierra Charest has the latest presidential numbers for some of the states where polls have already closed.
Thank you. So one of the most key states has actually almost been officially 100% reported. That state, of course, is Florida, where we've got 92% of the numbers reported. So we're getting extremely close to calling this crucial state that Trump is currently winning in. And in Georgia, Trump is leading here by a pretty comfortable but not surprising margin. South Carolina has actually been called, and Trump is the projected winner. Vermont has also been called, and the state has gone to Hillary Clinton. And in the last election, Obama actually beat Romney here by the largest margin, aside from DC and his native Hawaii. So Clinton's win here was expected. Now moving on to Virginia, Trump is beating Clinton by roughly 4 percentage points. Maryland has been called, and Clinton is the projected winner by a pretty large margin. In Massachusetts, the state has been called, and it looks like Clinton will gain those 11 electoral votes. Now moving on to Michigan, Trump is currently winning here, but not by much. About 2 percentage points he is ahead there. And in New Hampshire, the race is extremely close. It's actually nearly a tie, but Clinton is winning here, but very, very narrowly. Okay, it's actually no longer a tie, apparently. Sorry. So it will be interesting to see how this state and the rest of the nation goes. We will have more numbers as they come in. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Tiara. I'm now joined by Professor of Political Science, Michelle Black. Ms. Black, how are you doing?
Good, thank you.
What have you made of this, of the election so far? Not specifically tonight with the numbers that you've seen, but up until this point with the two candidates.
Well, regarding the candidates, you looked specifically at what their rhetoric has been regarding security and regarding foreign policy. So specifically looking at Hillary Clinton, we noticed that her rhetoric is a continuation of the Obama administration, where we'll see that if she is elected, she'll continue the type of foreign policy that Obama had. With Trump, you see a different rhetoric. He's more focused on isolation. So Hillary Clinton is more of an internationalist where she'll be involved, whereas Trump looks more at power, and he looks also at possibly pulling back when it comes to being involved in international organizations, and specifically when it comes to security, he doesn't look as necessarily positively towards the alliances.
When looking at Russia, what is their influence on this election? How do you think the next president, whoever it is going to have to deal with them?
Well, that's a great question, because really, what influence do we want them to have? You would want to think that they wouldn't have any influence on our elections, but the media, when we're looking at the discussions and the debates, bring that up quite a bit with the influence. And I would say even that when we're looking at Russia specifically, that you ask the questions of what will we do with Russia, strategically in the future when it comes to security. And so when you're looking at Trump and his discussions, he sees it as more of a friendly discussion later on, whereas in Clinton looks more as a contentious issue. So that's kind of how I see where Russia is.
Which candidate do you think is focused more on defense?
Well, I would say that they look differently at defense. So sort of asking the question back at you of who looks more at defense, it would be that Clinton looks at it in a different way of projecting her power versus Trump looks more at how do I show power, but not necessarily in projecting as in putting the forces overseas or involving them in that sense.
With all the different terrorist attacks we've been dealing with as a country, how do you see each candidate dealing with terroristic threats if either was elected president?
Well, with Trump, there really hasn't been specifics on how he would deal with terrorist groups or terrorist activities. So that's really hard to interpret, is what specifically would he do when it comes to terrorism. Because as we both have heard during the debates and his rhetoric throughout the time, he plans to just take care of them, and that's kind of difficult in understanding, well, what do you mean by that? Clinton, again, would probably carry on the same as the Obama administration, where the current plan that's in place when it comes to degrade, destroy ISIL specifically, if we were to look at that as an example.
And speaking about ISIL, looking at a local level, Don Bacon has spoken a lot about ISIS and how he plans to defeat them and really enforce taking care of ISIS. That's been his big thing. Obviously, he has a history in the military. Looking at it locally, have you had much time to really dissect his policy on ISIS? I know he's talked about it a lot. What are your thoughts on him mostly focusing on that and not focusing on other things as far as policy is concerned?
Well, I don't know specifically his complete policy, but I would say that you would need to look at security locally. That's very important, but it shouldn't be your only policy when at that level, because there is a threat when you're looking at terrorism and you're looking at violent organizations. But I don't know if only looking at that is such a strategic move when it comes to security in the area, and that's just my opinion. Is
security a big issue for Omaha, though?
I would not want to put in the alarm bell saying that, oh my gosh, we need to be completely, we need to be worried about anything. But since I do focus on security defense, that's always at the forefront of my mind is, how do we worry in a metro sense? What should we be concerned about? Where are weaknesses? Where are gaps in security? And then how do we as a city, and even as a state, work on becoming better in that area? How do we work with our defense? How do we work with our federal service? And how do we communicate to make sure that we are, during a crisis or during something like that, we can quickly respond versus, getting caught and not knowing what to do. So it's something that should be considered.
Well, Dr. Black, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
we
you
really
for having
do appreciate
me.
it.
Chris Little is in the newsroom with us for the first numbers from the race in Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. Chris.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah. Okay, so we have the first numbers in from the 2nd Congressional District. Currently, Bacon is in the lead at 54%, I'm sorry, and Ashford is at 41%. As we also are looking at it, this is still only 1% reported, essentially. We don't exactly have the in total percentage, but this is the best we could find so far, as it's still being counted. The polls only closed half an hour ago, so we don't have all the information with us at this time. They're still being counted as we speak. Also, going around checking, we are also looking at the death penalty measure that is currently in place. So far, the repeal has been at 55% and the retain is at 44%. Again, we do not know the exact percentage at this time. We'll get more information as this comes around. But the repeal, this has to do with the death penalty measure, would mean that this actually gets rid of the LB 268, which is the legislative bill that actually banned the death penalty in 2015. And this repeal would actually mean that the ban is thus the death penalty is reinstated. So because of that, if it looks like so far most people are still for the death penalty, or at least Nebraskans are for at this moment. So going back to you, I will leave it there.
Thanks, Chris. So the two candidates for the 2nd district seat now know the Erie vote. Let's check in with Justin Eidelman, who is at the Don Bacon campaign in the Marriott Regency. Justin?
Hey guys, I'm here with Elliot Bodorf, Director of Communications Manager for Don Bacon's campaign. And Elliot, what's the feeling like within the campaign after the polls have closed?
It's like transparent.
Man, we're feeling good. We're feeling great. The energy is electric in here. Early results showed us up 54-41. In about 5 minutes, we're going to get the next round of results in. I mean, we're feeling good. That's all I can say. We're feeling pretty good about tonight.
Now, if you had to sum up Don Bacon's message to Nebraskans, what would that be?
Don's message is honesty, integrity, character, and leadership first and foremost, all over everything. That sums up our campaign, running on an honest platform for the constituents of the Nebraska 2nd Congressional District.
All righty, you heard it there first from Elliot Bodorf, Director of Communications for Don Bacon's campaign manager. We'll keep you updated the rest of the night. Reporting live from Regency Marriott, I'm Justin Eidelman.
Thanks, Justin. Interesting numbers there with Don Bacon jumping out to a quick lead. Obviously, you saw there's only 1% reported, so it's extremely early. There's no substance to these at all, but pretty interesting to see that he has jumped out to that lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked about it all evening so far is how big these endorsements are going to be, how big the money is, how big the main endorsement, Paul Ryan endorsing Don Bacon, how big those are going to be. And we're still counting votes. So we're not finished yet. We're still counting the votes. We have some of those trickling in still. Like we saw 1% right now, but Don Bacon getting pretty hyped down there in Regency.
Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting, too, to talk about advertising, and we've seen so much more advertisements from Don Bacon, so pretty interesting. I'm sure we'll get into that later as the numbers start coming in.
Absolutely. Well, let's go live now to Brad Ashford's campaign election night coverage, where Sierra Watson is standing by. Sierra.
Okay.
Look at the camera.
Okay.
Just going to answer your question.
Thank you. You ready? Okay. We're here with at the Ramada. We're here at the Ramada Inn. I'm waiting for Brad Ashford to come and give a speech. Right now we have Councilman Ben Gray. We're just going to ask him a couple quick questions, if you don't mind. So, Ben Gray, could you tell me what you think about Brad Ashford's chances for tonight?
I think Brad has an excellent chance tonight because I think he's done all the right things to stay in office. I think he has compromised where he's needed to. He stood his ground where he's had to, but he's been across the aisle, and they've worked out deals and worked out compromises. Brad understands politics. He understands the intricacies of politics. He understands compromise. He understands standing his ground. He understands being supportive. And more importantly, I think he represents this district fairly well.
Okay, now when you say this district, you mean, of course, all of the district two.
Yes.
District two. So can you tell me more about what you think about what he plans to bring to the North Omaha district?
Well, as a state senator, you know, he put together efforts to provide money for the Justice Fund in order to help address the issues of gang violence and other things. He's also done things to address prison reform, as well as, you know, a number of other things on that level. On this level, he's passed legislation as well that I think is going to directly benefit North Omaha, as well as other parts of the community, with crime prevention and other tools that we can use to help us, first of all, get young people to understand and get them out. But more importantly, for those who are unwilling to do that, we've got some legislation in place that I think will make a difference.
Okay. All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Have a good night. All right. And that's what you have here with Mr. Gray at the Brad Ashford campaign. Back to you, Avery.
Thank you so much, Sierra. We're literally in the middle of a history-making night here in Omaha, and we're waiting to see if the United States will elect its first female president.
There's a lot more to come. You're watching Vote 2016, the presidential election. Stay with us.
The University of Nebraska at Omaha is a place for tomorrow's leaders, a place where individuals converge on a path to success, getting the attention and direction they need as they begin their career. It's where students take pride in serving Omaha, a city we've invested in for more than 100 years. UNO is a place where greatness begins. The University of Nebraska at Omaha.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our election coverage, and we are going straight to the newsroom for more results.
Jose Rodriguez and Alejandra Cortez are there with an update on all the states where polls are closed.
Thank you, Alex. We have new data for Connecticut, which Trump is winning with 39% points. Clinton is winning with 55% points. Also, we have data for Kansas, in which Trump is winning with 51% points and Clinton is with 41% points. You also have Maine, where Clinton is winning with 49% points. We also have Arkansas, where Trump is winning with 57% points. And the last one we have is New Mexico, Minnesota. We have Minnesota also, which is where Clinton is winning with 53% points. And the last one we have is New Mexico, in which Trump is winning with 67% points. What do you have, Alejandra?
Well, in North Carolina, not much has changed. Hillary Clinton is still leading Donald Trump with 49%. Ohio, Trump leads now with 51%, as opposed to Hillary Clinton with 47. In West Virginia, not much has changed either. Donald Trump still leads with 67%, while Hillary Clinton sits at 27%. In Minnesota, Clinton with a slight drop. Now she is at 42%, while Donald Trump leads with 56. In Mississippi, Donald Trump leads with 56%, while Clinton is at 42%. Missouri shows that Clinton leads with 51.9%. And New Jersey shows that Clinton is still leading with 50.7%. Pennsylvania shows that Hillary Clinton is still up 63.5%, although Trump is gaining some ground. Rhode Island shows that not much has changed either. Clinton is still leading with 53.8%, as opposed to Donald Trump with 42%. Tennessee shows that Donald Trump is leading with 68.3%, while Hillary Clinton is 27.6%. In Texas, Trump still leads with 50%, with Hillary Clinton trailing him at 46%. New data shows that Colorado comes in with Hillary Clinton leading with 52.2%, and Louisiana shows that Donald Trump is leading with a 66.5%, while Hillary Clinton has a 30.9%. That's all we have for now. Back to you guys at the studio.
Thank you. Whoever the new president is, he or she will have to deal with hot issues in the Middle East and South Asia. Dr. Patrick McNamara is director of UNO's International Studies program and is an expert on a number of issues in that part of the world. Dr. McNamara, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Thoughts on the election so far?
Well, I think it's too early to really know. We'll be watching tonight. Right now, I have a feeling it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, probably much longer than we will even be on air.
Exactly.
It just has that feeling like it's just going to go deep into the night. We talked a little bit about when I introed you. You're an expert on the Middle East and South Asia. How much has the Middle East played into this election?
I think the Middle East has been important, although foreign policy has not played as much of a role as I would have personally liked to have seen in the debates and in the greater policy conversation that has gone on. I think the Middle East is incredibly important, although Obama has tried to shift away in what he was calling the pivot to Asia. That pivot to Asia has not been as successful because it seems every time that he tries that pivot, he gets sucked back in. I think that the next president, no matter who it is, will also have to continue to deal with the Middle East and not just leave that a vacuum.
And how do you see each candidate dealing with the Middle East if they are elected?
It's a good question. I think we know more about the answer to that with regards to Hillary Clinton, less with regards to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is really the wild card in terms of foreign policy. He has said some things that have been concerning to many of our allies. I think that right now, one particular interesting dynamic in the Middle East is the increasing role of Russia, especially with regards to Syria and what's gone on with the Russian support of Assad and his government there. That actually is something that, as Trump has aligned himself more with Putin, at least in some of those statements, none of us really know behind the scenes, that actually concerns many of us who are watching that region about the support for Russia and Russia's support for Syria. We obviously, at least publicly, have said that Assad has got to go. Whether that on the ground is what's actually happening is a whole other question.
Can you compare and contrast the two with the Middle East and Russia? We talked to Dr. Black a little bit about Russia earlier, but it is, sort of the elephant in the room that we really have to talk about. The same with the Middle East.
That's right.
How do you compare and contrast the two situations and how it'll affect us as early as tomorrow?
Yes, I think that one of the interesting questions is if we do have a President Trump, will Putin come out and say, "Hey, there's my man," or if we have a President Clinton, will there be a reset button that's pushed and we have a whole nother chance to redo that relationship? No one knows at this point, and it's going to be very interesting as we wake up on Wednesday morning to see what kind of a world we are living in.
Not even looking at sort of a hostile viewpoint, but we talked to Hal Daub earlier.
Yes.
And he said the world is watching us.
That's right.
In the Middle East, in all of these different places, what are they saying about this election? And when we wake up tomorrow, how could it change the world's viewpoint on us?
I think the vast majority of people are hoping that Hillary Clinton is the next president. I'm talking about around the world. There are some outliers, and I'm sure my friend and former boss Hal Daub would have some different opinions about this. But I feel, and I know from having traveled widely in the past 18 months as this election has played out, and as Trump has ascended in his candidacy, I think there has been more and more concern about the unknown that is Donald J. Trump.
Dr. McNamara, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I believe we'll have you later on as well. Can't wait to talk to you.
Thank you.
Tonight we're watching the U.S. Senate tonight. This is a critically important issue tonight if Hillary Clinton is elected president. Currently, Republicans hold the Senate 56 seats to 44, and some Republicans are vowing to block any Clinton appointees to the Supreme Court. Let's take a look now at what the Senate looks like right now based on the states and where the polls have closed and the projected winners. Right now, no surprise here in Florida, Marco Rubio winning 52%, Democrat Murphy 44% in Florida, 90% reported so far, so those are still coming in. Illinois slowly creeped up to 26% reported, Republican Kirk losing badly to Democrat Duckworth, 65% to 30% in Illinois. Again, still coming in there. Indiana, Republican Young, 52%. Baugh, Democrat, 41%. Again, one of those states that's a key battleground for the Senate. 60% reported there, so we still have some time to go there. Wisconsin, Republican Johnson, 69%. Feingold, 27%. Again, 1% reported. Something that about 45 minutes ago, we were still unsure when those will start trickling in. We do have those numbers now. Again, Republican leading there, 1%. Nevada, still 0% reported. Again, we're moving east to west here on our timeline. So Nevada, not yet reported all the way in. We're still another key battleground state here for Republican Democrats. We look for those seats. Ohio, Republican Portman, 58%. Strickland, a Democrat, 37%. That's a 46% reported. So Ohio right now, another key battleground state. Those seats are going to be huge. North Carolina, no surprise here. Burr right now, 49% to Ross, the Democrat, 46%. 71% reported, though. It's really close in North Carolina, usually a state that does lean Republican. New Hampshire, Ayotte is 46% to the Democrat, Hassan, 48%, 19% reported there in New Hampshire. So in Pennsylvania, Tomey, 33% to the Democrat, McGinty, 62%. That is at 10% reported right now. Still, we're seeing some of these outliner states getting in their votes for the Senate now. So here's a look at the electoral map so far for everyone at home keeping up with the election right now. So it looks like Donald Trump is winning 136 to 104. A lot of red here on the map, as you guys can see at home. It looks like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 to 5 states right now in the blue. A lot of the reported states are coming in red right now. Donald Trump is at 136 to 104 right now in favor of Donald Trump. And we're going to, as that shifts east to west, we're going to start to factor in California. We're going to start to factor in those other states down south on the West Coast. So just trickling in more and more.
Yeah, maybe not a surprise either that he has dominated those southern states and the 2 Dakotas either. So it'll be interesting to see how the electoral map sort of shifts, as you said, as we move to the West Coast.
More polls are closing across the country. We'll be right back with those results.
And more insights into the results and this election season when we return. This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election on NET World and the Knowledge Network.
Recently, MAP Radio has won several awards, both from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association as well as the Broadcast Education Association. And I think it just is proof that our students are doing work that is equivalent, if not surpassing, other students around the nation. So I'm really proud of where we've come, and I can't wait to see where we're going.
The Creative Production Lab, located in the Chris Library, is where students, faculty, and staff can work with video, audio, and design. Use the green screen to create digital backdrops, use their professional audio recording booth, the Whisper Room, or even use their 3D printers for your design needs. The Creative Production Lab has everything to help you utilize your creative skills. Being creative is not a hobby, it's a way of life. Check it out today.
The Library Cafe at UNO's Chris Library is the ideal spot to stop in and grab a bite to eat. Order a hot cup of coffee or other drinks. Chat with friends or study.
I have no idea where I'm at right now. I just really need some help.
Do you need some help?
Yeah. Okay. Library is here.
I heard the word help.
Yeah.
Student ambassadors are here to give a helping hand to anyone on campus. We're also your one-stop stop for tours of UNO's campuses and providing new student orientation so you can register for classes. Find us in the Welcome Center located next to the Weber Fine Arts Building.
From the studios of UNO Television, this is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election, presented by the University of Nebraska at Omaha School of Communication.
Welcome back to our election night coverage. Polls everywhere in the East and Midwest are closed now.
Let's go to the newsroom where Tiara Charay has an update.
Thank you. So it is getting a lot closer. In Virginia, we see that Clinton and Trump are pretty much neck and neck, with Trump having a slight lead. In Michigan, Trump is winning as well by a slightly larger lead of about 5 percentage points. It looks like there will be a close race for New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes. The race is essentially a dead tie right now at 47 and 47. South Dakota has been called and is a victory for Trump. Arizona was also called and is another victory for Trump. The Empire State has been called as well and is a pretty unsurprising victory for Secretary Clinton. New York has been pretty reliably blue since the Great Depression, so these numbers aren't too shocking at all. And finally, in Wisconsin, Clinton is currently winning, but her lead here isn't too large. She's up by about 2 percentage points. So we'll see how the rest of the race goes. Back to you in the newsroom.
There is a relief all across the country that the campaign season ends tonight and right now, but the election is still undecided. UNO School of Communication professor Adam Tima is back. Hey. He is back to talk more social media.
Hey.
Dr. Tima, we were talking off camera how quiet it's been. Yeah. Are you surprised how quiet it's been?
A little bit. I'm not surprised that the candidates themselves aren't using social media that much right now. That doesn't shock me at all. I was expecting a little more traffic across the various hashtags that I've been kind of tracking, and those have been there, but I also think that those are starting to slow down as well. I guess people are tired, their thumbs are getting sore or something like that, but it seems to me that people are kind of holding their breath now to see what's going to happen. My prediction would be that when the next round of closures happen, when we see the next predictions come out, we'll see it ramp up again. This seems to be kind of the trend right now.
Do you think it's been quiet so far because a lot of these voters are decided. I mean, anything a 21-year-old to 30-year-old sees on Facebook or Twitter isn't going to change their mind now unless it's really dramatic. Do you think it's been quiet because there's really no need to be loud right now?
That's possible. It really would be. We have to talk to some people about it after the fact. But I think you hit a valid point there, which is now that people have made their minds up, now that the polls are closing, do we need to promote anymore? Do we need to get things rolling anymore? What'll be more interesting will be tomorrow morning. If there's a decision that gets made tomorrow morning, I hope we know what's going on by tomorrow morning. But if we know what's happening, I think we'll see it ramp up. I think it will now go to the next step. I was talking on Mav Radio a little bit ago, and I just kind of said trolls will be trolls. I think that's when we're going to see another round of that internet memeing and trolling kind of come back into the game.
Do you think, regardless of who becomes president in the next few hours, hopefully, do you think we'll see a stop in social media usage, or do you think whoever wins will be like, get right on the Twitter and the Facebook and be like, we won, let's party?
I think you'll see the we won. I think you'll see the thank you so much constituents, thank you so much voters, thank you for your faith in us, now let's get started. I think you'll see that part happen from the campaigns. I think what you'll also see happen then, of course, is the people, the supporters, the diehards, the people who are going to either be screaming for a recount or are going to be saying, see, we told you so, or a host of things. I think that's what we're going to see happen next.
So in the era of social media, as it's growing, we hit on this earlier in the evening, as that's growing, do you think it's just going to continue to pile on? Let's say in 2020, 2022, do you think this is really going to spike? Do you think we're going to see a shift in advertising in kind of a back and forth between candidates?
I think it won't be as soon as 2020. I think it'll be when the generation who is primarily on social media, when that's become their standard bearer, as it were. Whatever the next gen is into, whatever they're doing, that's when we'll see that kind of become the upswell. It's a cycle that happens in all the technology, it's a cycle that happens in all forms of media. When one kind of hits a saturation point, the next one kind of comes into play. What that one's going to be, I don't know. We could talk VR and augmented reality, at that point. But right now, what we're kind of looking at is it's here to stay. It is, again, one of the ways that people are getting the message out. And it's an effective one for a particular demographic.
Perfect. Dr. Timo, once again, our light in the darkness of social media era. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And thank you again for being on our program this evening.
Of course, my pleasure.
Now, updates from the elections now. We'll move to Avery for those.
Chris Little is in our newsroom with the latest.
Thanks, Avery. Nebraska polls have been closed more than an hour now. As we try to go looking back into it now, it appears that for the vast majority, it looks like it remains unchanged so far with Bacon and Ashford. We still do not have the percents out, as the precincts still have not given out the full amount. They're still in the partial stage. So we can't do much information about that at the moment for the 2nd Congressional District. But moving on, it does seem with the 3rd Congressional District now, we are looking at Smith, and at the moment he does not seem to be having any percentages we've at this time been able to count up. Maybe it's been closed for more over than an hour, but we're still at the moment do not have the numbers, unfortunately, so we cannot count them up yet. So we have to wait until Smith any more information about that. So moving on. And that does it for vast majority of the information. So we can't do much so far as any other additional info. We seem to still be mostly cocktailed in So moving on, I'll now give it over to Alex. Back to you in the newsroom.
And with those numbers, the two candidates and their supporters are reacting to the news.
Justin Weideman has been with the Don Bacon campaign all night. He joins us with an update from that event at the Marriott Regency. Justin?
Thanks, guys. We're still here at the Regency Marriott. The polls are closed. Still no results for who has won yet, but I can tell you the crowd is definitely getting a little anxious, getting a little louder. Group of people sitting around TVs looking at results, and so people are definitely getting really anxious, and the crowd seems to cheer every time they see Trump's winning a state or has won a state, so it's definitely getting really anxious here, and we'll try to keep you updated as soon as we can when we get the results. But the ratio, Don Bacon still is winning around 2 or 4%. So we'll keep you updated, guys. And reporting live from Regency Marriott for the Omaha News, I'm Justin Eidelman.
Thanks, Justin. And as we saw earlier from the numbers that we initially got, it was only 1% reported, but Don Bacon did have a sizable lead in the district thus far, which is pretty interesting to see. Even though it was only 1%, a big lead for a guy that has never held office is pretty sizable.
Yeah, around, you look at how big the metropolitan area is of Omaha and how it's literally right across the river from just a slightly smaller metropolitan area in Iowa. So what I think a lot of people don't realize is how big of an impact Omaha really does have on this little section of southwest Iowa and Omaha, Nebraska. So this race coming down to it is really going to be key for the Republicans. It's going to be key for the Senate. It's going to be key for this election because, again, we talked about the blue dot. You did a story on the blue dot. And coming down to these last few districts, the numbers are slowly coming in. We're going to start to see that shift. And it doesn't affect just Omaha. It affects Iowa as well. And Sierra, she's been at Brad Ashford's campaign all night long. Kudos to her. She joins us now at the Ramada Inn at 72nd and Grova. Sierra.
We're here live at the Brad Ashford campaign at the Ramada Inn on 72nd and Grover. We're still anticipating, waiting for Brad to give his speech. We don't know the numbers or yet if he won or not, but the crowd just erupted in joyful claps and cheers because they found out Hillary won a couple of battleground states. Like I said, everything is going smoothly here, and we're just anticipating Brad Ashford's speech on whether or not he won the election. Back to you, Avery.
Dr. Beth Chalecki is our guest now from the UNO Political Science Department, and she's here to talk about environmental issues and what the new president will face. Dr. Chalecki, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. So when you look at climate change, what are the views from each candidate? We haven't talked a lot about issues over the course of this election because of the personalities of both of these candidates and the actions they've made, but they are important, and environmental issues are important. What are their views on climate change?
It's been disappointing that climate change has not become more of an issue in this campaign. We were expecting it to turn up in more of the campaign materials. We were expecting it to come up in the debates. It really was mentioned only in passing in one debate, and almost no airtime in print or literally airtime has been devoted to this issue, which is a shame because it really sits under the development of the whole country. And if we're going to be serious about combating climate change, we're going to have to decarbonize the entire country's energy supply. And we can't do that without solid policy leadership from the president. So the fact that we haven't heard much about this is disconcerting, to say the least. Now, if you look at their respective web pages, Hillary Clinton's campaign has an exhaustive list of policy issues and so on, and she has mentioned this about how she would try to move the country away from fossil fuels to sustainable energy. Trump has said, he's tweeted, in fact, that climate change is a hoax that's been invented by the Chinese to make their manufacturing more competitive. That's flat out nonsense. I'm sorry, he obviously doesn't understand how scientific method works. So I think that if we do end up with President Trump, and we are not there yet, we don't know what's going to happen, but if we do end up with this, then we're going to have to just devolve any kind of action on climate change from the federal government to the states, and from states to cities and companies and universities and local corporations and NGOs, and basically take this power back to the hands of the citizens, because it's not coming from the federal government.
You've said environmental issues have sort of taken a back seat this election. Do you feel like they're more of an issue than in past elections?
Climate change is getting worse every year. We only have to look at satellite data coming from NASA and temperature data coming from NOAA to see that we're facing hotter years every year. 2016 has been the hottest year on record so far. So we are having to deal with rising sea levels. We're having to deal with fluctuating precipitation levels, a melting Arctic. And trends are only increasing. We don't see any scenario where they're decreasing. So it gets more important every year, literally. Unfortunately, the two parties used to be relatively in sync on environmental issues. And just over the past decade or so, they've just gone dramatically in different directions, with the Democrats willing to work on environmental issues and willing to even discuss them, and the Republicans just saying, no, this isn't happening. They're just pretending it's not happening, which is incredible.
The North Dakota pipeline is obviously an environmental issue, but it's become more of a social issue. It's taken over Facebook, everybody, checking in to mess with local law enforcement. Where does each candidate stand on this pipeline?
Well, Trump is for it. As far as he's concerned, the more oil infrastructure we have, the better. This is going to guarantee our energy security in his mind. I think Clinton has taken a more nuanced stance. She knows we need to continue developing energy infrastructure, but she's also, I think, a little bit more sensitive to some of the negative environmental ramifications that come along with big infrastructure like a pipeline. If that leaked or broke, it could be catastrophic to the local communities and to the nation's oil security. So this is something that we need to have a measured policy discussion on and not simply throw ourselves in wholly for or wholly against.
Well, Dr. Chelicki, we appreciate you coming on the program tonight and giving us some insight. Thank you very much.
The numbers are changing very quickly right as we speak.
More updates when our coverage continues.
About how you're feeling right now. One thing you would like our viewers to know about this state.
The importance of volunteerism.
What are you saying to folks?
I'm here to discuss these images.
When you can take that knowledge and that expertise and that passion in terms that they're all going to understand.
They need to know the real stories.
I'm Kathy Wyatt. Join us for Consider This each week on NET1.
The Creative Production Lab is a space for students to express themselves through artistic creation. Whether they want to do something visual, such as using the 3D printer or laser cutter, or if they want to create an audio project in the Whisper Room, the options are endless within the Creative Production Lab.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our continuing election coverage. Coming up in a few minutes, we have an interview with Professor Barb Pickering, who has been writing about Hillary Clinton for some 20 years.
But first, let's go back to the newsroom where Jose Gonzalez and Alejandra Cortez have the latest results from the states where polls have closed. Guys?
Thank you, Avery. We have data for Maine, which is currently for Clinton, who is winning with 50. Yeah, Maine, where Clinton is winning with 50% points, and also we have Minnesota, in which Trump is winning with 57% points. We also have Minnesota, where they are having a tie right now with 46% points. And also New Mexico, in which Clinton has 53% points. Now you, Alejandra, what do you have?
Okay, now we're going to move on to North Carolina, where not much has changed. Hillary Clinton is still at 47%, while Donald Trump is at 49.9%. In Ohio, Donald Trump had a slight drop to 53.1%, while Hillary Clinton is now at 42.7%. In West Virginia, the state has been called in favor of Donald Trump, as well as Mississippi. In Missouri, Trump gained some ground, leaving him at 53.3%. and Hillary Clinton had a slight drop to 42.7. New Jersey has been called in favor of Hillary Clinton, while in Pennsylvania, Donald Trump has gained some ground at 39.9%, and Hillary Clinton has dropped to 56.8%. Rhode Island has been called in favor of Hillary Clinton, while Tennessee and Texas both have been called in favor of Donald Trump. Texas gave Donald Trump 38 electoral votes, the second largest amount of the United States, followed only to California. In Colorado, Donald Trump rose to 43.2%, while Hillary Clinton experienced a slight drop to 49.4%. Louisiana has also been called in favor of Donald Trump as expected. That's all we have for now. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Alejandra. CNN has called a number of races already based on early returns and exit polls. We're going to take a look at them now. And as you can see, Trump has extended his lead up to 149 to 109. You're seeing more states come in as Montana is in. And it looks like, yeah, again, like we said earlier, more red, especially in the south and the east. And we said as it moved further west, we would see more blue. Obviously, you see further up north, you would expect the Dakotas to go red. But what do you make of the map so far?
Definitely more red than I expected. Again, you're seeing on the screen here 270 to win, and we're slowly creeping up to that number. It's 920 where we are at right now. So as we get these numbers in, we might not even be halfway there. We still have a lot of time to go, and it's one of those things where we're getting ready to buckle in because it's going to be a long night as these come in. Again, thank you, Ava, for breaking those down. Most predictions this morning said control of the U.S. Senate was a toss-up to close. We started the day with Republicans having 56 seats in the Senate and Democrats with 44. Counting 2 independents who vote with the Democrats. So let's take a look right now and how tonight's results are changing that picture. So Democratic seats nationally, we have 42. Republicans are at 44. 60 seats are needed for the supermajority, which if Hillary were to win tonight, those Democrats in theory would take over the Senate there. We're here with Dr. Barb Pickering. She's been following this election year very closely. First, Dr. Pickering, a professor of UNO School of Communication. She's been teaching a course on political communication all semester. Second, she's been writing about Hillary Clinton for about two decades, following her career in the White House as First Lady, in the Senate representing New York. As a diplomat when she was Secretary of State, Dr. Barb Pickering joins us here. Thank you so much for coming down and to talk with us. About your relationship, or your written relationship with Hillary, what really got you involved with her, and what really sparked that for you?
When I was following the 1992 presidential race with Bill Clinton, one of the things that jumped out at me was how Hillary Clinton was such a polarizing figure even then. And I was really curious what it was that caused that reaction by the American public, because she wasn't running for office. And what I discovered, at least in my research, was that what happened was she defied some of the traditional images of a first lady, or first lady candidate at that point. And so it seemed to me that because she defied so much of what we think of in traditional roles of a first lady, doing things that are domestic issues, covering that sort of thing, which defied a lot of, she was defying a lot of that because she was very active. She was an attorney, had a professional career. And so she kind of defied what we expected in that private sphere of a first lady.
Regardless of what's been going on in her when she was the Secretary of State, what do you think it would mean for this country to have such a strong female leader?
Well, I think it obviously sets a precedent that we have not had, and there are many other countries around the world that have already had female leaders and very powerful figures. So that would put her in kind of the company of those other sorts of leaders. You have Germany, you've got Angela Merkel, you've had Margaret Thatcher in Great Britain, and she in many ways is similar to that in a very strong, powerful figure and in how she presents herself. So that would be consistent with what lots of other countries have already had.
Obviously, Barack Obama, the first African American president. With the turning point, we could have our first woman president in office tonight. What do you think that'll do for American politics? What do you think that'll do to America as a whole?
I think it really will shatter that glass ceiling. I mean, if it comes to be, that would definitely be the turning point, because we've had 45 presidents, we've had 44 white male presidents, and we would now move into a more diverse population of presidential figures. And really, it starts to get at a point where you reflect what the nation looks like and the population of the U.S. And there are still many diversity issues there to be conquered. But I do think it's one of those points in which historically it changes the possibility. I mean, you've seen a lot of the coverage talking about how this inspires, young women and little girls to realize that, there is no barrier. And that's not to say that it's an easy barrier to conquer, but it still makes the world a very different sort of place.
With the turning point of Barack Obama, like I said, 8 years ago, do you think with Hillary Clinton running right now and potentially a presidential nomination or presidential win, do you think we're going to see a more and more of a female presence in this country, a more of a voice, I should say?
Well, I think certainly she brings a perspective that is unique in the same way that Barack Obama brought his own unique perspective. And if you look in the public sector in the workforce, one of the things that some of the research shows us is that when a organization or an entity is more diverse, whether it's ethnically or gender, there's a different perspective. There are things that a female leader or a African American leader or a Latina leader is going to bring to the table that is a perspective that's new and different. And, in my perspective, that's always a good thing.
Dr. Pickering, what do you think we're going to end up with tonight?
I have no idea. This election has been such a bizarre series of events. I mean, I teach the media and politics class, and one of the things we talk about is can this election cycle get any more bizarre? And, that would happen, and then there'd be another set of events. And so it's been a very strange season to follow politics. And as much of a political junkie as I am, I think I'm ready for it to be over.
Dr. Pickering, thank you so much. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to spend it with us and to get your insight on Hillary and what this might mean to the public.
Absolutely.
Thank you. More results from around the country and a visit to the election centers of the two candidates for Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District.
That and more coming up on Vote 2016, the presidential election here on NET World and the Knowledge Network.
UNO TV invites you to take a journey around the world, to lush jungles with endangered species, to exotic lands and different cultures, to lost cities beneath the sands. Travel through time to see ancient secrets on the other side of the world, the growth of the American West, or the start of Nebraska's largest city. Or just explore our state. Find out about Nebraska in World War II. Learn how Omaha has grown since. Discover the effort to renovate its green spaces, the history of one of its most impressive buildings, or look at its internationally recognized university. For over 20 years, UNO TV has produced award-winning documentaries that explore, educate, and enlighten. To find out more, call 402-554-2516 or visit unotv.unomaha.edu.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our election night coverage.
Let's go right up to our newsroom where Tiara Charay has the latest presidential update. Tiara?
Thank you. So it's almost the end here, so we've got a few more numbers to report. Florida is getting close to having a projected winner with only less than 5% of the state's votes yet to be reported. Trump is still currently winning here. In Georgia, Trump is currently winning there as well. His lead is widening though. In Virginia, the race is still a dead tie. Both candidates are at roughly 47 percentage points. In Michigan, Trump's lead still stands with more than a quarter of the votes yet to be reported. New Hampshire is still pretty close as well, with Trump up by about 2 points. Moving on to South Dakota, the state was just called for Trump by a pretty large margin. The last time the state was voted Democrat was 1964. In Wisconsin, Trump is up by about 5 points. And finally, Wyoming has been called, and its 3 electoral votes will go to Donald Trump. This is not too surprising that these votes will go to Trump, since in last time the state has only voted Democrat a very, very few times since 1952. And in 2012, Romney beat Obama here by the widest margin of victory, aside from his win in Utah, which has yet to be reported. But thank you. We'll be back to you in the newsroom. In the studio.
Thank you, Tiara. Joined again by Dr. Nethery Castro. Welcome back. Did you have a chance to look at any of the numbers since we last talked?
Yeah, in fact, we were just watching in the other room. It looks like they just called Ohio for Trump, so that's kind of a big, big win for him.
Yeah, we had talked to a couple people beforehand, and that was one that it could have gone either way, but I think most people kind of saw it as Trump was probably going to win that one. Florida going to Trump, it looked like at last check, so that's another huge win for him.
Hasn't been called yet.
A lot of red on the map that we've been seeing, so pretty interesting, but still tight. Why do you think Trump's lack of a political background has been so appealing to voters?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that you're seeing this populism playing well, not just in the United States, but actually sort of internationally, and it's really being fueled, I think, by the economy primarily. But you're also seeing so the economic downturn, but particularly the economic downturn and how it's hit certain groups of people. Those who feel that globalization has not been good to them, those who have been expecting the promises of the global economy but haven't been seeing the benefits of the global economy, those are the people that are likely to be Trump supporters. And you're finding that in many cases they are lured by the sort of a populist appeal, and they look for the outsider. And so running as someone saying, I'm not part of the establishment. I was talking to some millennial voters at our election returns party upstairs, and what you're finding, interestingly, the kind of a cynicism about politics, I think. And these are people who really haven't, they haven't really had a big stake in the global economy or any economy yet. These are young people. But what they are telling me in some cases is that they feel that, the economy, that politics, that things are being decided by elites and those who run the banks and run the global financial system and things of that type. And this is a kind of a new phenomenon to see this in young people who haven't really, as I said, been part of the economic system or had meaningful careers and things of that type yet. I'm talking about like 18 to 22-year-olds that I was talking to upstairs. Is a really interesting thing, and I don't know if that's sort of a well, I think this is what fueled populism for Bernie Sanders on the left, and then you're seeing it fueling populism for Donald Trump on the right. So I think some of that has to do with who.
Go ahead and bring one in.
Has to do with who, what their initial leanings were towards the political system. So if you were on the right, that you might see that populism might lean you towards supporting a Donald Trump, but if you had sort of political leanings towards the left, that populism appeal might lead you towards a Bernie Sanders.
Isn't it interesting then that, when you talk about the lack of a political background, it might be is that why maybe the emails scandal sort of hurt Clinton a little more, because maybe voters saw her as somebody who has this political background and who could probably be bought and sold?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point. I think that the idea that somebody who has been in the political system as long as she has certainly could be a target for, she's one who's, politics as usual. She's been in the system, she's in cahoots with those folks. I think that narrative plays well with those who are already predisposed to seeing, hey, the system is already rigged against me. And, that is an appeal to those who would, find the populist appeal strong. And so, I think in that sense, being an outsider who says, hey, I haven't been in politics, I'm not part of that. The interesting thing, of course, when you see somebody like Donald Trump being able to mobilize that, is that this is a guy who's been, part of the global economic system for a long. He's been in business. So if you're seeing the conspiracy of the bankers and the financiers and all of that as being part of the system that you're not part of and you're not privy to, this is a guy that's been right in the mix of that. So the idea that he could portray himself as somebody outside that is an interesting shift. And if he carries it off, it's power to him, because it's doesn't really mix with the reality that it's his background.
Has there ever been an election in the past where a candidate's political background has mattered more than this election?
I think a candidate's political background always matters, in the sense that voters in most cases are making a judgment on either retrospectively, what have you done in your past, and basing their decisions for the future on that, or looking prospectively to say, okay, what do I know about this candidate, and what can I expect from them, for me in the future based on what I know. But I think that idea about how, the cues that we get from politicians or from people running for office are always going to be part of their background, and so having the political background, I think, is what we know of that person. The idea, I think, that's unique maybe in this election is that for Donald Trump, the fact that he's been able to shift his narrative on who he is as an individual. I think the idea is this is a guy who has been a rich individual, somebody who's been very entrenched in big business. And to say, that's his background, right? To say, hey, I'm one of you guys, I'm somebody who's outside the system and I'm for the little guy, is a fundamental shift from who he is. But if he's able to craft that narrative and pull it out, I think that's a really remarkable thing.
Well, Dr. Nethery Castro, thank you for joining us on the program tonight. We really appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
So now we're going to go back to Chris Little. He's up in the newsroom he's reporting on all the local numbers for the all the districts and even on the death penalty. Chris, what's going on up there?
Thanks, Alex. Well, it seems actually so far right now, and we've actually just come in with the results, and it seems that Brad Ashford is now actually in the lead. These numbers are a little bit different, but it seems that he actually has roughly around around 50% or so, and now it's going reducing to Bacon, who was actually originally in the lead. Now we go to actually the results of the death penalty. Actually, it's roughly still the same. It's just gone down a little bit. Roughly, we're now at 55%. Still want the repeal, so it's still mostly for the death penalty. And we've covered this, that it's roughly around 41% or so that it's been reported so far. And then we're going on to the overall numbers. It still seems that Trump is actually in the lead to probably mostly win Nebraska. But since Nebraska is not a take-for-all state, Clinton actually seems to have some good results in the blue dot, because now she's actually up 48%, whereas Trump is actually only 46% now. So we actually have these results coming in. So looks like she's going to get one electoral vote actually out of Nebraska from the blue dot. The last time it actually managed to do this was back in 2008 with Obama. So now going So, rather going further, that's actually rather interesting that it managed to actually hold the results. And so, going on, back to you, Avery and Alex.
Thanks, Chris. A couple of interesting notes about the District 1 and 3 races here in Nebraska. Daniel Wick is the Democratic opponent of Jeff Fortenberry, but he hasn't spent any money on his campaign. Fortenberry has spent more than $750,000, according to the website opensecrets.org.
In the 3rd District, Democrats didn't put up a candidate to run against incumbent Adrian Smith. There's an independent running. Her name is Lisa Heineman, but she hasn't spent any money either. Smith, unopposed, has spent more than $1.1 million.
It's been a long night for the two candidates in the 2nd Congressional District representing Omaha, where the race has been tight. Justin Eidelman is at the election event for challenger Don Bacon as he joins us live from there. Justin?
Hey guys, I'm here with Derek Oden, field director for the Republican Party in Nebraska. Now, Derek, what have you been hearing? What do you know?
Well, it looks like right now the New York Times has Trump at an 80% chance of winning the entire presidency. He's up basically everywhere right now. He just won Ohio. He's up in Florida. He's up in North Carolina. He's up in Michigan. And as well, I guess, with regards to Bacon, the early voting just came in from Sarpy, but we are still waiting on Sarpy County and Western Douglas to come in for today's vote. So we actually feel like Don Bacon is in a great position to win. We think Don's going to win, and we think Donald Trump's going to win the presidency.
All right, and you've met Don Bacon a couple times. Tell us about him. How is he right for Nebraska?
Well, he's a 29-and-a-half-year Air Force veteran, so he has the national security expertise that's needed in Washington, but he's a genuine guy. He cares about absolutely everybody he talks to. He's not a guy who, I worked for various candidates in the past who they kind of have an ego about themselves, and they want everyone to basically bow down to them. Don's not that guy. He's in the trenches with everybody. He knocks doors, he phone calls, and he makes it a point to talk to each and every person. And I think that's what's different about Don. He's genuine. He cares about our country, and he has the leadership needed. He's a principled conservative. He's not somebody who has their finger in the air. Hey, which way are the polls going to determine which way to vote? He knows who he is, and I think that's why we need him in Congress.
All righty, guys. I'm here with Derek Oden, Republican Party field director, and the crowd here is ecstatic. Just a few minutes ago, we had a couple Bacon chants going. Everybody's surrounding the TVs just like normal. No official results yet in, but as Derek said, they do feel Bacon is in a great position, so we will keep you updated again. Don Bacon probably won't get here till around the 10 o'clock hour, so we'll let you guys know. Reporting live from the Regency Marriott, I'm Justin Eidelman.
Thanks, Justin. Pretty interesting there, seeing all the numbers we were just given locally and nationally when you look at a local level Ashford with a little bit of a lead. Interesting to see how the blue dot is shaping up with Clinton with a two percentage point lead, What did you make of those numbers? It's interesting as well with the death penalty, people voting to repeal the ban.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about this early on. We talked about how big the blue dot would be, and the blue dot for the past about hour 15 minutes has been non-existent. So it's, I guess depending on how you lean, it's good to see that blue dot there. It shows that people are out. They're voting. They're getting their voices heard. So that blue dot may be the difference in the national election, and it might be come down to the Bacon-Ashford debate here locally.
Yeah, it's interesting. Also looking at Trump's numbers. I mean, with such a big lead, you just wonder. We don't know how it's going to shape up. In the next coming hours. But that blue dot, who knows? That could be extremely vital as we near the end of this election season. But very, very interesting numbers there so far.
Absolutely, and like we mentioned earlier, Nebraska can split their electoral college. So that blue dot may come in very key for Hillary down the stretch. So we're getting those numbers in. We're getting those in very sporadically here. We're still almost at half numbers for Ashford and Bacon right now. We're hoping to see those trickle in here, and like Justin said, he's not getting there until 10 o'clock, so we might be here for a little bit longer.
We'll just leave Justin out there. It's not a big deal. On this historic night, we're keeping you up to date on all the election coverage.
This is Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election. Stay with us.
The UNO TV team teaches students the skills they need to take professional jobs in the Omaha community. Through paid positions, students build their skills in lighting, audio, camera work, and other essential control room operations. Programs air locally on TKN and statewide on NHE World. UNO Television, student crew, professional staff, award-winning results.
A little bit about how you're feeling right now. One thing you would like our viewers to know about this state.
The importance of volunteerism.
What are you saying to folks?
I'm here to discuss these images.
When you can take that knowledge and that expertise and that passion in terms that they're all going to understand.
They need to know the real stories.
I'm Kathy Wyatt. Join us for Consider This each week on NET1.
Watch ICU Learning English on the Knowledge Network.
Omaha News.
We cover everything from news and politics to arts, events, and medicine.
A youthful perspective on today's stories from the UNO School of Communication.
Young reporters with a weekly look at the Omaha community.
Watch the Omaha News every Wednesday at 4 p.m. on TKN.
This is the Omaha News Vote 2016, the presidential election.
Welcome back to our election night coverage. We are keeping you updated on the changing election numbers from around the country.
In our newsroom, we have Jose Rodriguez and Alejandra Cortez, and they join us now with the latest. Guys?
Thank you, Alex. We have numbers for Maine, which is 50.5 percentage points, and Clinton is 50. We also have Minnesota, who has 55 points percent for Clinton. And also we have New Mexico, who has 49.68% points. The next state is Idaho, where Trump has 81% points. And the last one is North Dakota, where Trump has 66% points. Alejandra?
Going back to North Dakota, Trump has gained some ground. Now he's standing at 50.5%. Idaho has been called in Trump's favor, as well as West Virginia and Mississippi have also been called on Donald Trump's favor. Missouri has also been called to Donald Trump. New Jersey has been called in Clinton's behalf. In Pennsylvania, Trump has gained some ground up to 44%. While Clinton is still in the lead at 52.6%. In Iowa, Trump has 35% with Clinton leading with 59%. Nevada is still not called at this moment. And Texas, Tennessee, and Louisiana have been called in Donald Trump's favor, while the new polls of Iowa show that Hillary Clinton has the lead with 59.5%. Montana has been called on Donald Trump's favor. He was the projected winner for this state. In Colorado, Clinton has 48%, followed by Donald Trump with only 53%. This is all we have at the moment. Back to you guys at the studio.
Thank you so much, Alejandra and Jose. So we've talked all night about how the Senate seats are going to shake out this evening, and we're seeing these key battleground states finally shifting. We're finally getting those numbers very clear. They were muddled earlier in the evening, but now we're starting to get them coming in as we're moving again from east to west. So right now the Democrats hold 42 seats, Republicans hold 45. 60 is needed for the supermajority, and if that is hit, then that means the Democrats, either way, that means the Democrats or Republicans will finally have all the seats in the Senate. So as these states keep coming in for each state. I mean, you look at all the red that's on these different states so far this evening. We're looking down the line, and definitely more red than we thought, and that's going to impact the Senate because those men, women who get elected into those positions, they're getting voted. They're getting voted in there. They're getting appointed. And those are shifting just by the minute, by the hour.
Yeah, and what we have to keep in mind too is that a lot of these states really haven't been called yet. There's a lot of different outlets, just projecting victories, right? But we want to make sure that we make it known. Florida hasn't been called yet, even though some outlets are saying that it's red. We need.
Wait a second.
We just need to make sure that people understand they're not called yet. But
so
as the Senate is shifting both ways, and as this race continues to move along, it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of different gears to this election that are all moving at one point, and as these numbers keep coming out, things are going to keep shifting, and the sort of landscape of the country is changing completely as far as politics are concerned.
Yeah, just like you said, Avery, the landscape is shifting. Florida at 95%. A lot of these other states are sitting at that between 58 to 90% range. Trump did win Ohio. He's on the verge of getting that Florida.
Michigan as well.
Michigan, and we're seeing that shift. Just like you said, we're seeing that shift in the landscape, and with those votes, every vote that someone's casting, every person matters tonight, and we're seeing that at the Senate level as well because those votes matter as well.
Very interesting stuff there. We're going back to the newsroom where Chris Little is ready with the latest figures from the Nebraska 2nd District and the question about the state's death penalty. Chris?
Well, thanks, Avery. We're still inputting the numbers as we speak. We do actually have the numbers, though, for the 2nd Congressional District at the moment. Currently, Ashford is once again back in the lead, is still in the lead with now up to 49%, while 47% he's still managed to actually get. So he's trying, but roughly 49% reported that it's complete. It may very well be that Ashford may take the Senate. So that is currently what we're looking at. And then here we actually do have some numbers now. The repeal actually is up to 56% once more, and that actually is being completed. Now we go back to then we go to the overall for Trump and Clinton of the overall estimations, and Trump is once again still in the lead for overall Nebraska, but the electoral vote for the blue dot actually looks like it still may very well go to Clinton. Well, roughly it's neck and neck at the moment, but from what we're seeing, it could be anyone's game now. So could Trump actually take the electoral vote and it become a 1-all? It's very probable now. So it's still undecided at this moment, so we'll have to wait for any more information once that comes in. And until we can, then hopefully we will. So back to you guys in the studio.
And here is what the Electoral College map looks like right now. As we can see, like Avery and I talked about earlier, a lot of red so far. Trump is holding 167 Electoral College nominations right now. Hillary, 131. Kind of closed the gap. The last time we had it up, it was 104 to 167. So Hillary, right now, I would say kind of closing the gap, but those key battleground states are still coming in. Iowa, not decided yet. California, historically, it's going to go Democratic, but those are not 100% in yet. We're seeing them, again, we're seeing 50% to about 95% in Florida, so still getting those key numbers in.
Yeah, very interesting. Like we've said, we keep talking about these numbers, but again, very interesting stuff. The whole landscape of everything is changing, so very interesting. And finally, let's take a look at the electoral votes for each candidate. So right there you go. Trump with 168, Clinton with 131. You got to imagine that, again, with California, she's got a little bit of a buffer zone there, which would put them, about neck and neck as more states begin to close out. It's really anyone's guess as to what's going to happen. I guess depending on which way you lean, that's not what you want to hear. But
Yeah.
as far as a neutral in politics, it's very exciting to see a close race and just see how everything's going to pan out. But we have Patrick McNamara back. He's decided to join us once again. I don't know why you've decided to come back.
It just gets more and more interesting as the night goes on here.
But here you are. You've come back to join us as the night comes to a close, really, for us. The election will continue to go on. But looking at foreign policy, is either candidate better equipped to deal with foreign policy?
Yes. Hillary Clinton is better equipped to deal with foreign policy. Her time as Secretary of State, and I understand that there are some critiques of her time there, but she has both the Rolodex, now virtual Rolodex, the relationships around the world, as well as the foreign policy experience. She has been in the Situation Room. She was there in some of the heat of the battle, certainly when we took out Osama bin Laden. Donald Trump is the wild card in this race. We just don't know what, and he's shied away from any bold statements on foreign policy. When he did make bold statements, such as the idea that we not support our NATO allies, that kind of stuff backfired on him. So we just don't know what we're getting with Donald Trump. As we look at these numbers coming in tonight, it's still anybody's race. This is going to be a longer night. You guys are off, but the rest of us are all watching closely, and I know you'll probably go home and watch too.
We won't even be able to go home. We'll probably just go upstairs and hang out with you guys for
right
a little
on.
bit.
Come on, the party's upstairs.
Do you feel like either candidate is more equipped to deal with, bringing stabilization to the Middle East?
Yes, I think that there is a
Or I guess which one, what do each of them bring to the table as far as that's concerned?
Well, Donald Trump has been clear in that he does not want to get engaged in a bunch of foreign entanglements. And there is a sentiment around that. And I actually understand from a long history of what I would call some foreign policy missteps over the past decade, 2 decades. We have seen entanglements. We have seen nation building. We have seen some failed wars. And I can totally understand why Donald Trump doesn't want to go there again. Hillary Clinton, I think, is seen as a more hawkish candidate, and she would probably use the military power of the U.S. In some ways that Donald Trump probably would not. Good, bad, indifferent, that I'll leave up to the American voters. Right now, they are deciding. We will see later tonight what kind of a world we will wake up to tomorrow morning.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting when we do wake up tomorrow. Whether it's even called at that point or what we're looking at. But like we've talked to many people tonight, the world is watching and the landscape is completely changing. So
you were too young to remember, but when Al Gore and George Bush in 2000, I mean that went on and on and on.
Absolutely.
Finally, the Supreme Court had to decide. I hope we don't go into one of those long-term elections again.
Me either. We've been preparing too long for this to go that long.
Right.
But thank you very much, Patrick, for joining us.
Thanks for you guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate what
really
you've done
appreciate
tonight.
you coming.
We end our program tonight without a winner in the presidential contest.
It is a very close race, and Donald Trump is winning some of the key states that would put him over the top.
It could be a late night, and it could come down to California, or it could be over before that. We want to thank our reporters tonight and all the people helping us with keeping the numbers straight and bringing us the results to you.
We also want to thank a great crew who worked behind the cameras to get us on the air, and we want to thank you for joining us tonight. For all of us at the Omaha News, good night.
The UNO TV team teaches students the skills they need to take professional jobs in the Omaha community. Through paid positions, students build their skills in lighting, audio, camera work, and other essential control room operations. Programs air locally on TKN and statewide on NHE World. UNO Television, student crew, professional staff, award-winning results.
You've always known you were a leader, someone who works hard to achieve your goals. You can see it. You can see your success in front of you. You pursue a college education for the old-fashioned reasons, to learn, to make yourself more valuable, to succeed. You need a place that celebrates your ambition and positions you alongside visionary people just like you. You, my friend, belong here, the University of Nebraska at Omaha.